Greetings, everyone. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. That is with Allah's signature, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. We want to certainly welcome our listening audience, especially our class members, our classmates here at the University Online Learning course. It is anticipated to be a very exciting day today in our class. The subject matter that uh, that we've that we've entertained before. As a matter of fact, is uh, nature versus nurture 3.0, which means we've been there a couple of rounds in the past, but we can never finish, especially a subject like this, nature versus nurture. And this is part two. So if you have not, as of yet, gotten your study materials, your note-taking materials ready, do that while you have a minute to spare. And certainly when you get your writing materials, the first thing you want to do is put yourself in the zone and in the mode for learning. And the best way to do that is to write down at least 10 things that you're grateful for that will put your mind and your heart uh, in the right part of the stratosphere, if you will, where they're uh, interacting with each other, they're communicating with each other, both the heart and mind is being connected. So that's what we want to do. So those things that you're grateful for, make sure you jot those down. Uh, of course, the list could be endless. And actually, it could be endless. You can start from the crown of your head all the way down to the sole of your feet, and just working on the human body. Uh, being thankful. But throughout this whole universe, God, there's so much. There's so much. So make sure you do that. Uh, and I was just looking at the title of our class today, the subject matter for our class today. And, I like to think in terms of, how uh, we're being blessed with the level of information, the knowledge that we're being blessed with. And I think about it in terms of my own life, and I think that's the most useful thing we can do is as we entertain these ideas, these concepts, as we're being blessed by the source creator to entertain these ideas and these concepts. Think about it in relationship to your own life experience. I'm a firm believer that everything that I've experienced up till now in my life has prepared me to meet the challenges for now, the challenges of the moment. And we've reached a point in human history till life is more challenging now than it's ever been before for human beings. But we have been prepared for this moment. So look at the information, listen to it, reflect on it in relationship to your own life experience. I was thinking about those two words, nature and nurture, how close they are. And the main thing that's differing between the two, especially looking at the consonants in the word, is that extra R. And that R has that sense of repetition and speed and doing things repeatedly and doing it very fast as in running. And I thought about, that to nurture something, is more challenging. It's more challenging, once the path is set, to keep it in order in a universe that's constantly changing is can be a challenge. So if we just reflect on our own life experience and see how uh, what's being brought to my attention now, how does it relate to me in terms of my being able to meet the challenges of life right now in the moment. I think if we listen with that thought in mind, not only for our class members, but for the listening audience that will, if they're fortunate, be able to study and listen and entertain this information online on one of the platforms. Uh, but if we only will think in terms of how does this apply to me, how can I use the information to improve the quality of life? because life is always moving forward. It's always advancing. It's always expanding. The only question is, am I consciously aware of my part in the expansion or how it's expanding in my life? So we thank Allah. We thank Allah for your presence. Make sure that your devices are muted so that we'll have a clean recording and presentation. I see our international instructor, Benjamin Bilal, is ready to take this walking stick, and I don't know if we're going to run with it or walk with it. I don't know. I'm ready to pass it on.
All right. Thank you so much, William Safir. Always an excellent presentation. So I begin with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and that is with Allah's signature, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Forgive me for the little grovelly type voice that I'm exhibiting, but I talk every day, almost all day long, and this is the result. It's not sore, it's not anything except grovelly, but I think we can make it through this particular experience if you just continue to pay attention. So we begin with what is called the basmala. And any of you who are not familiar with that term basmala, you need to get hold of that relatively new book that I wrote, The Meaning of the Basmala. And the basmala is simply the often stated phrase, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. That's called the basmala. That name is not in the Quran. That name was given to that phrase by the Muslim scholars of old who needed to codify that particular concept that Muslims are told to use time and time again, every time and all of the time that they begin reading any part of the Quran. We should begin with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And we've gone over many, many times what that phrase is meaning. We know that it is emphasizing the concept of what the English language would call mercy. And the Arabic scholars translate the word mercy into English as rahmah. So when you hear ar-Rahman and ar-Rahim, both of those words are from the smaller verb rahama, which means he had mercy on something or on someone. And that's rahmah. However, the word rahmah comes from a smaller word called, if I'm giving it to you as the Quran gives it to you in the plural, it would be the word arham. If I'm giving it to you in the singular, it would be the word rahm, R-A-H-M. Rahm. You can say that to yourself while you're muted on your side of the computer. Again, R-A-H-M, Raham. Now, the methods that we use in this Nunetics language experience, let's call it, also details for you that the word Rahman, yes, indeed, it does come from the word Rahma, but our method has been able to determine an even smaller component that goes back even before the word Raham was instituted and put into the Arabic language. And we have determined that these triconsonantal roots, such as Raham, which carries the consonants Ra, Ha, Mim, Raham, Ra, say it after me, Ha, the heavy Ha sound, the H sound, and the M, Mim. Yes, those are the basic root letters for the word Raham, which gives us the word Arham, wombs, W-O-M-B-S, as well as the longer phrase Rahman, which is one of the attributes of Allah Himself, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, what is important about understanding the actual beginnings of this word? The actual beginnings of this word begins with a biconsonantal root called a proto-root. That it is the oldest grouping of letters that is put together in any alphabet. Proto-Indo-European. You've probably seen that as what is it? PIE? Yeah, Proto-Indo-European languages. Look through the dictionary and look right next to the word, and it's going to tell you pretty much what language that word emanates from. So you're going to see many, many words. In fact, all languages have proto-root letters, but it comes to a point where the scholars begin to believe that those are no longer really necessary because there's really nothing to learn from them. So they shoot straight for the roots when they start teaching you language, including this English language and including particularly the Arabic language. So when you read your Arabic dictionaries and your Arabic lexicons, what you're actually getting in those three-letter root words that they call verb or verbal roots, you're getting the root, but you're not getting the proto-root. Proto-roots are always two consonants, whereas root words always consist of three consonants, three letters. So as we gave the example of Rahman and Rahm and Arham, all from the same root, which is Ra, Ha, Mim. And this is one of the most sophisticated devices, I think, that has been created by scholars in language, whereas these scholars might not necessarily have wanted you to understand where the actual beginnings, where the actual beginnings of the language lie. Why would that be? Now, I'm guessing, and I hate to try to guess people's intentions, but when you see something over and over again, you got to wonder. You see, if I'm the one dictating what the meaning of that word is, because I'm telling you what these three letters grouped together as a root word mean, and I'm not giving you any indication of where I got those meanings from that I'm giving you now as actual meanings for a word, then you have to just trust me. You have to trust me. And I don't see anywhere in the Quran where Allah asks us to trust people like that, on that level. I see in the Quran where Allah asks us to investigate his fitrah, meaning his natural order of things. Now, if Allah wants us to investigate the fitrah, and Allah tells us that our very deen, the word that they mistranslate as religion, that our very deen is based upon the fitrah, deen al-fitrah, then that tells me that I should be going to the fitrah for my meanings. But how can I go to the fitrah for my meanings when I'm given a bunch of letters in an alphabet that none of the scholars are telling me where they came from in the fitrah? How do I differentiate Raham from, Qasam? Two different words, but who decided that Rahama would mean mercy, and who decided that Qaf, Sin, Meme would mean something else? These are the kinds of inquiries that we need to be making as intelligent people studying language. Language is the basis for all human thought, which leads to expressions of thoughts in the mind. Human beings a long time ago, they had thoughts, but they weren't able to express those thoughts in terms of cogent language, speech, articulation. All of that was a later development that Allah blessed this creation with, blessed the human mind to come into. The meanings of the symbols and the sounds and the sigils and all of these things that we were seeing in our environment, hearing in our environment, but didn't necessarily immediately have a way of articulating what those things meant, so that groups of people who learn the meanings of those things can continue to grow mentally. We could grow in terms of our understanding of things in the immediate environment. We could do that without clear, articulate speech. But in order for us to continue communicating with humans as we travel and meet other humans and want to understand other humans, we can't do that unless we formulate a language system that is able to communicate in the language that those people pretty much understand or can be taught. So what we're doing is we are essentially taking out the middleman. We're eliminating the middleman in language. That's what Nunetics is doing. If you really want to know what the true value of Nunetics is as a language modality, we're removing the middleman because every time you have a middleman, you're going to pay more for what you're asking for. When you go to your own garden and you begin to cultivate your own fruits and vegetables, there's no middleman there. You don't have to pay somebody to go do that. But when you pay me to come into your field, into your garden, and begin to collect your fruits and vegetables, and I have to weigh them for you, I have to wash them for you, I have to package them for you, now you have a middleman to pay. And that's exactly what the world of language scholars did with language. They put themselves in the middle as the middle person or the middleman, and they charge humanity much more than what it's worth for them to begin to interpret this language for you and tell you what they mean. You know that phrase, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man how to fish and he'll eat forever. And teach other people how to fish. So Nunetics is teaching you how to fish. Fish what, instructor? Fish out original meanings for words. Now, how can we trust you, instructor? You're giving us meanings for letters and concepts and Quranic phrases and words and all. How do we know we can trust you? Because I'm not asking you to trust me with these letters and these meanings. I'm asking you to go to what these letters and phrases mean as they are articulated by Allah through nature. We're talking about nature versus nurture today. Those letters that you call Arabic letters, but it's true for all letter systems, except some have been more manipulated than others. The basic advantage that we have in learning Arabia, or what they call Arabic, the basic advantage we have is that all of the Arabic letters are to be found within Allah's fitrah called nature. So when you go to the thing in nature that it is indicating, now you can study that particular object for your own self and come up with your own determinations because you can't lie about what nature is doing when you see it doing it all of the time. Have you ever seen anything grow from the sky down? No, impossible in nature. Everything has to grow from the bottom up, from the ground upwards. So all growth is growth from a basic or foundational or fundamental existence into something that can become abstract and branched out in multiple whatever it's going to be, just like the tree. That's why Allah uses the tree in the Quran and compares the tree to the development of words and language. Allah says that a goodly word is as a goodly tree. So where does the tree begin? In nature. The tree begins with seeds. You have to first plant seeds, or nature herself will plant those seeds, carry those seeds through the wind and plant it in fertile soil. It doesn't even need a human to do it. Allah does it. And under the right environmental conditions, those seeds begin to germinate. And then by the time the human being knows anything about it, there's a lump coming up out of the ground. Yeah. And when the human being further investigates how that lump got there, that's when he runs into the idea of roots that are developing beneath the ground. Roots that develop outside of the purview of human eyes. All of that is happening beneath the soil. It's called a tap root. The tap root is what I'm giving you the equivalent of when I teach you about the proto root. They develop outside of your purview. They are then planted into the human mind. They are planted into the human soul. And we're talking now about a mind that is able to study the fitrah that these proto roots and these roots are actually based upon fundamentally or foundationally. I hope I'm going slow enough for you to understand what it is I'm saying. These are beautiful explanations for language. This is what I've come to believe is the best explanation for the idea of learning the Arabic language particularly, but like I said, it's really connected to all languages because all languages are related. All languages are related through common sounds that we make when articulating language. And with all of the many dozens and hundreds in some cases of words and sometimes even letters, I believe the Chinese language has over 100 letters. That's a lot to learn in school, isn't it? But if you're able to break those letters down into common sounds, you're only going to get 7 different compartments of the mouth that can pronounce those 7 sounds. So whether I give you the sound of T, ta, ta in Chinese, or the sound of T in Vietnamese language, or the sound of T in Espanol, or in the French language, or in the German language, or in the Kiswahili language, that T sounds pretty much the same. T, T. Your mouth has to do exactly the same thing to pronounce that sound. It's called a phoneme. That sound in any language is going to come from one of 7 different compartments of the human mouth, no more, no less. All of the vowels in any language come from the sound of the open mouth. A, I, U. The mouth has to be open. So when they tell you that the so-called cavemen, that they call the beginnings of humanity on this planet, that they spoke in those kinds of inarticulate sounds and inarticulate grunts, and they say the cavemen say, ooh, ooh, yeah, yeah, like monkeys, right? Those are vowels. If you study the Fitzroy, you'll learn this quickly. So if the sounds of those monkeys and those apes and those other inarticulate sounds that came from the prehistoric people, they call prehistoric humans and all of that, take that for what it's worth. But if they're telling us that the sounds were mostly open vowel sounds, then that could be some indication that the people who spoke them are some of the oldest people on the planet. Could be. That's my hypothesis. But when people began to coalition with each other, if my ancestry can be traced back to a central location on some continent somewhere in antiquity, and my family group is one that I am in charge of, I'm the chief of that group, and we're in a particular swath of land or something that, maybe a couple of miles or something worth of land that we are cultivating and feeding off of. And we really don't bother to venture any further than, those couple of acres that we can visually see around us. All of this is ours. Until one day the sun comes up, and along with the sun's rise, we see a whole new group of people coming towards us from somewhere else. And when they get up close to us, they don't necessarily look like us. They don't necessarily make the same grunts and groans and sounds that we make. They might even be more articulate than us. They don't necessarily eat the foods that we eat because the foods that we eat may not be grown in their particular vicinity. This is Allah putting us through a process of human evolution. Keep in mind what I'm saying now. This is Allah operating in the world as Rabb, R-A-B-B, Rabb. They call that the evolver and the one who sustains that evolution. How does Allah sustain evolution? By causing evolution to meet evolution in other places, to cause people who were not previously in touch with each other to begin to coalesce with each other and compare notes, so to speak. How did you grow that fruit? Or where can I find that vegetable? Or can you teach me to grow that? Because I tasted that and I love it. This is evolution. Evolution, by its very nature, is born out of coalitions of people working together. So evolution is actually a byproduct of our social interaction. Everything that Instructor Benjamin Bilal is teaching you today is in the Quran. But you have to listen very carefully to what I'm saying and to how I am saying what I'm saying in order to get the hints, catch the hints that will lead you to the direct references in the Quran. Once I give them to you, you go study them, study the wording, study how Allah phrases it, study the other words in its word environment, and you're going to begin catching on like this. That's what our smaller classes are going to be all about, and they're going to be beginning next week. I'll be sending you the group that I'm assigning you to if you're an official member of the University Online Learning course. If you're not official, in terms of you making a payment or working out some kind of payment arrangement or something with me so that you're not really on my official roles, even though I've been letting you into the class for years. And some of you, I don't even hardly know your names. I just know you like what you hear and you like coming in. Some of you come in through Facebook because I send links there also. Well, a lot of that is going to cease and desist for the greater amount of information that I'm giving. So if you're in the class, Yahoo for you. If you're not in the class, we'll give you information at the end of this video, or William, please remind them how to actually register for the University Online Learning course, because if you're not an official member, again, you're going to be missing so much. And all we want you to do is just recognize the work and contribute something towards the advancement of this method. So I'm saying a lot because a lot is necessary for us. This is not like you going to GED program and just learning some new information about the land you live in, or, whatever, trying to get whatever you're trying to get, entry into the country. You got to take this language course, ESL. Or so. No, that's not what this is. When you take up Nunetics, you are learning the language of creation. Creation is speaking to you. That's the language that you're learning. So no matter where you look in the natural environment at whatever you're looking at, you're going to be able to read. That's what read means in the Quran. When Allah says Iqra, he means recognize my language environment. I know that hit some of you kind of hard, didn't it? Iqra, learn to read my natural language environment. It's not talking to no Arab. It's not talking to any German. It's talking to a human, not a German, a human, a humus mind. A mind that has been designed by the source creator to absorb information, just like the soil absorbs the seed and the moisture and the sunshine. You live in a world of symbols. You live in a world of sigils. You don't know that word? S-I-G-I-L-S, look it up. You live in a world that is designed to produce abstract thinking. The human being is the only creature on earth, as far as we know, that can think abstractly, meaning we can extract multiple meanings out of literal ideas. And that abstract meaning, those abstract concepts, have been power packed into human thought and human communication. If I see you in the morning and I say, hey, man, I ain't seen you in a minute. What's up? That's an abstract statement. Am I going to look up? Do I think he's talking about the literal up? Of course I don't, because abstract language is retrofitted into your DNA to begin understanding what people mean when they use these directional phrases, or when they use these conditional or qualitative phrases in their language and in their expression. Man, that's a cold dude, man. Stay away from him. He is cold. What does that mean? When I go touch him, he's going to be like at 33 degrees Celsius or whatever cold is. Or stop being so hot. Stop being so hot-headed, child. Pay attention. Stop arguing. That means if I go touch his head, he's going to have a fever. Because I call them hot-headed? No. You call me up on the phone, hey Ben, what you doing? I'm just shooting the breeze. Does that mean I'm sitting in my living room with my rifle or my gat, ready to shoot at the air and possibly kill somebody in the house? Nobody's dumb enough to believe that. But people are still too dumb to understand what abstract language is and how human beings are regulated by abstract concepts. So if the human being has been retrofitted, I love that word, by Allah, that means even before you got here, this was pre-programmed, pre-planned for you genetically to think as an abstract being because it's the abstract thinking that elevates you above the common animal. That gorilla we spoke about, those monkeys we were talking about, that monkey behavior is in their genes and it's not going to be bred out of their genes. It's just in there. That's in their psychic makeup. It's in their emotionality to be a monkey, to jump around and who make a whole lot of unnecessary noise. If we are still jumping around making unnecessary noise and creating inarticulate speech, nobody understand what you're talking, even though you're talking English, you're living on the level of the chimp. We might say the chump. You're a chump in creation if that's the maximum amount of possibilities you can pull out of your mind. Allah created you for much more than that. But this diabolic system of people who have been sharing so-called information and education with us, they are the culprits on the most part. They have intentionally, in many cases, in most cases, designed an academic platform and program to keep the human mind dumbed down. Because for as long as they can keep our minds dumbed down, they can control the environment that is making buku bucks for them as we sit here attempting to learn this system. There are people who are only making money, trillions of dollars, because they know things that they have not taught us to know, and that they have taught us are taboo subjects to know. And the way that they do that is not by hiding all of the information so you can't find it. You have an internet now. You can find just about everything. You can find it. You can find more about yourself on the internet by just Googling your name, and stuff will come up from your past that you didn't even know made it to the computer. Where you went to grade school, where you went to high, how many times you've been married, who you've been married to, how many children you have, what their social security number. You can find all of that stuff on the internet. The internet knows more than you do unless you go back into your memory bank. But they've collected all of that information. And that's what Iqra means also. It doesn't just mean read. It only means read in terms of reading your environment. When you read your environment, what are you literally doing? You are collecting. You're doing exactly what the computer is doing. You're just what the AI programming is doing. Do you know that AI doesn't only mean artificial intelligence? AI should properly be called ACI, artificial collection of information. It's a collection service that's collecting everything possible on you and I and us. It knows your fingerprint. It knows where to find your footprint that they took of you when you were born, before you left the hospital. It knows the colors of your eyes. It knows how your whole body operates, all of the systems of knowledge that Allah has clocked into your nature. The internet knows all of that. And AI is attempting to advance that knowledge. Why? Because if you can advance it past the point where the average human can collect it and use it, then it can effectively replace you and me. But I'm telling you, Instructor Benjamin Bilal has got to jump on those rascals. And I'm sharing that jump with you because what I'm giving you as Nunetics, a method for understanding every letter in the alphabet based on Allah's fitrah, they can't duplicate that. It hurts the false soul of a computer to try to understand what I'm talking about. If you could just creep up on that artificial intelligence and just listen in his chest, it's gonna be like the Tin Man in the Wizard of Oz. No, there's nothing there. There's no heart. There's nothing there. Ding, ding, ding. That's artificial intelligence. They've been predicting these things for many, many decades through the formation of these stories and nursery rhymes and books and cartoons and all of these things. That's where your real information is, believe it or not. It's in the cartoons. It's in the fairy tales. Yeah, hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up the clock. That's where it is. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. That's where your real information is. Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after. That's where the real sciences are. Hear what Instructor Benjamin Bilal is telling you. That's what they've been hiding from you. That's why they give them to elementary school children so that they can just learn the moral of the story and maybe learn some of the language, but they keep it relegated to the lower levels of human intellect, to the things that you will want to think about when you get older and older. You don't go back to think about those nursery rhymes like I'm re-presenting them to you. Yeah, you learned them in grade school. You left them there. You remember them because you repeated them so often, but you're not concerned about what Jack and the Beanstalk means. You have no clue, and you have no idea, and you have no interest until I re-present those ideas, those stories, those words, those values to you. With the first question being, why is Jack the most repeated character in nursery rhymes? Jack Sprat could eat no fat. His wife could eat no lean. But together, when they would sit at the table, they would lick those plates clean. But you don't know that that's talking about a very sophisticated plan for world domination and the takeover of cultures and customs around the planet. Jack and Jill went up the hill. You see how it's always Jack going up to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down, not Jill, not initially. Jack had to fall down first, and he broke his crown. You know, crown is a symbol of authority, power. And then Jill came tumbling, not falling, tumbling. But if you don't know what tumble means, because they've hid secondary meanings from you in our dictionaries, most of them, then you won't know that tumble also means to become disorderly and confused. So whoever this Jill is, she became disorderly and confused. And we know that those are mental issues. When you're disorderly, it's because your mind is out of order. When you're confused, it's because you're mixing up this with that with the other thing. And you can't separate the reality of either one of those three things. That's confusion. Confusion is actually a medical term. If you have had severe diabetes, that's a term that they use for extreme diabetics when they can't differentiate where they are. They know where they are, but they don't know where they are. They know what their address is, but they can't tell you how to get there. See, that's confusion. That's what Jill is doing. Jill is from the word jilt, J-I-L-T. And jilt means to reject a lover after accepting a lover. It's stated best in the song, the 1970 song called Break Up to Make Up by the Stylistics, where they said, break up to make up, that's all I do. No, pardon me. Break up to make up, that's all you do. First you love me, then you hate me. That's a game for fools. How about that? Wisdom in our R&B songs. So this is what they've done in the culture. They have hidden the most sophisticated pieces of wisdom, actually. They have hid it in the language of the culture. And it has especially happened because they have conditioned us to believe that the abstract thought is not what we should be investigating or trying to figure out. And the Muslim world of scholarship has been the number one culprit of this trick without them knowing that they're being tricked, because they were taught to mistranslate words in the Quran that suggests that we should not be thinking about abstract things. If we're thinking on the abstract level, we're following the devil who is causing our minds to become diseased. And they go to certain Quranic verses and they say, see, here's where Allah is talking about the foundational or the fundamental and the abstract, the allegorical, they call it. And they say those in whose hearts are diseases, they follow the abstract. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're following abstract language, like I said earlier, all day long. When you say, you see what the instructor Bilal is doing, that is, he is out of his mind. He's out of his mind. Just for you to say I'm out of my mind, you're giving me an abstract thing. I'm not out of my mind. How are you out of your mind? It's your mind. Any sentence that you mention to yourself, write it down, or just listen to yourself, or record yourself. Before 60 seconds is done, if you're talking repeatedly, you would have made some type of reference to an abstract concept. That's what the language is mostly about. In the human world, in the world of the animals, ba means ba for whatever that means in the ears of another sheep. Or, the whinnying of a horse means whatever horses recognize that sound to be. But in the world of humans, it's not the same. So you have to investigate the meanings of proto-roots in the same way that the plants have to first establish a tap root beneath the soil. And the tap root has to first go downwards in order for it to make a curved motion that will then, and that curved motion is designed to wrap that root around rocks and other things that can stabilize it. I'm talking language, the understanding of how language develops. That subroot, that tap root has to wrap around the rocks, the sediment, and whatever else it can wrap itself around for stability. And if you look at a picture of a tree as an X-ray beneath the ground, you're going to see that those taproot branches sometimes branch out more lengthy than the actual branches that eventually appear in the top of the tree. The roots beneath the soil are sometimes much more extensive. They can run into other fields where other trees are. And you don't know anything about it because you don't have Superman vision, X-ray vision. But that has to happen first, is my point. Once that's done and it has secured itself, remember, security is the first motivation operating in the 7-tiered development of your chakra energies. The first one is dealing with safety and security. This is the rule for all things in the fitrah. So when I teach you about the fitrah and I teach this language methodology through using examples from the fitrah, I'm not teaching you what I have invented. I am teaching you about what Allah has created, and that can't change. Allah says, do not let any change, no change let there be in Allah's creation. And in that sentence, he's talking about the fitrah. Read it in Surah 30, Rome, Ayah 30, 30. How about that for vision? That's the superior vision to 2020 in Quranic viewpoint. Because it's telling you the purpose of Allah's fitrah. and that we should be viewing everything through the lens of Allah's fitrah. So don't go to the scholar first. Don't go to Newton and all of these other scholars and this one and that one and Sigmund the Fraud and all of these people to learn your psychology, to learn your mathematics, to learn your physics. All of these subjects are to be studied through the prism of Quranic insight into the meanings of objects and items in his fitrah. Allah speaks about the distorting of the fitrah. Do not corrupt or distort the creation of Allah. Khalqillah. Do not let tabdili. Do not make alterations in Allah's creation. Why is that so important? For the very reason I've been speaking about for the past 30 minutes or so. When they gave us the English word alternative, it was a sneaky way of saying alter the native or the nature. Alternative. Be careful of these alternative teachings. Like that instructor guy, he's giving you some alternative meanings for Quran. That's not in the Quran. That's not in the Hadith. That's not in the scholarship. That's not in the Sirah. Those are his alternative. They're trying to tell you that I'm distorting the nature of something. Distorting something that is native. No, the stuff they're giving us is not native. I'm tearing it up as soon as I find it. I'm taking it out with the trash. How beautiful this is. Goodness is on the rise. I don't know if you realize that. Look out your window sometimes. Go shopping in the supermarket. Listen to people's conversations, if they're public conversations. And you're going to know, like I know, that despite what they tell you about the downfall and the feebleness and the extremes of this world, if you listen closely enough and you talk to enough strangers, you're going to know that, and then compare it to what people were doing 30 years ago, 100 years ago. You're going to know for sure that Allah has been advancing humanity forward. He just has not been advancing all of us. He's been advancing only those who answer the invitation to be better, to be more excellent, to be disciplined in a way that is able to shun all of the inferior stuff that's being thrown at your five basic senses. And you say, no, that's not coming in. No, I'm not letting that influence in my house. No, I'm turning that television channel off. I don't want my 5-year-old and 7-year-old to be looking at this pornography that they're calling a movie. So when you take control, you take charge, then your life is in your hands. If you don't take charge, your life is in the hands of whatever and whoever is controlling the environment. That's where you get to the nurture part of this conversation. Nature is here to teach us. Nurture is here to advance us past the idea of just being taught something academically, and to make sure that what we're being taught academically goes into the right portals. These 5 basic ones that we find in our face, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears, and the skin, the touch. You got pores there where things come in and out. When you can learn to master those 5 doorways, you are on your way to mastering your life. And there is very little of damage that can be done to you once you have consciously chosen to take control of those portals over who you let in your house, essentially, is what I'm saying. Leave your door unlocked. Some of us put a sign up that says, "Come ye, one and all." And believe me, that's what this world will do. They'll treat you like the broken border issue. They just said, oh, they said we can just come in now, no vetting. Do you know that everything that comes into your 5 senses is supposed to be vetted by your intellect? It's supposed to even be vetted by your intelligence. We'll explain the difference in those two in a moment. You're not just supposed to let anything in your ears and believe it because somebody said it, a news broadcaster or somebody said it. They're telling you that there are storms, hurricanes, tornadoes coming out of nowhere into somewhere. Somebody's playing God. And we sit on the other end of our televisions and we just believe what they say. Oh, this has never happened before in nature. Maybe 100 years ago this happened. But this is God being angry at us. See, that's the other trick. They want you to think that all of the bad things that are happening in nature are because of an angry God. He just fed up with the humans. So he's sending lightning, thunder, rain, hurricanes. You know how Elijah Muhammad used to give it. You know, all of these different weather calamities. He's sending them, to just do away with this humanity. It's not the first time this trick has been played. They played it in the Bible also in the story of Noah, where they say, literally, they say God got angry. Can you imagine now? Here's the creator. He could figure out the atom. He could figure out the quark, but he couldn't figure out the human. He didn't know that down the line, this human would become a knucklehead. He could have squished us out then. Why did he let all of this evil grow in the world? And then it says he became so angry that he decided to end it all. And he flooded out the entire earth except for Noah's family. And then he began humanity all over again with just a couple of them in charge of repopulating the world. So the evildoers of this world, they read that language. They read that language in scripture and they say, oh, this is what God does. And we want to be God. We want to be God-like. We want to be like God. We want to be ruling the world like God rules the world. Okay, well, here's how God deals with his anger management issues. He just takes a large group of humans and he executes them. He just takes a few of the Hebrew slaves of the Egyptians and he turns the tables on them so that the Hebrews slaughter 300,000 Egyptians and call it justice. And it says men, women, children, and the unborn Egyptians just wiped off the planet because of the sins of their fathers. Baby ain't even get a chance to do nothing wrong. Baby hasn't even had a chance to think an evil thought, but they say, the proclivity is in his genes, so we got to get rid of the babies too. Yeah, it's the same ideology that is ruling in the world right now concerning me and you. If you really want to know why they don't like you, now I'm talking to people who look like me mostly now. If you want to know why the world of this crooked leadership does not like us, it's not because they see us doing all kinds of evil things. They see some of us doing evil things and they say if we let these people live and we let them keep having babies, we're going to have a real problem on our hands. So let's put things in place in this society to eventually eradicate them from the face of the earth. Why do you think the abortion issue is such a hot topic right now? Because that's what they're trying to do. We can't trust what these African Americans and these Latinos and these if we let the outer population grow, we can't trust what they're going to be doing, especially when we know that our numbers are dwindling for some reason. Our young people in the Caucasian population, they don't want to marry and have children anymore. They want careers. And because they're out there chasing the dollar, they're becoming less and less interested in chasing family life. So now we have to balance out the scales by just, getting rid of millions. If we can get millions of them wiped off the face of the earth. I know this sounds extreme to you, but continue to listen. So understand what my point is. You can write your own little papers on it later. What is the whole point here? The whole point here is that there is a very sophisticated system of elimination taking place on this earth right now. It has not yet reached the level of biological warfare where humans are just wantonly being executed or eliminated from the world. That's not the first stage of the plan. The first stage of the plan is to eliminate that which, if you don't have access to it, you're not going to become a problem for them anyway. And that is the great elimination of the human soul. They need the bodies for the labor part of what needs to be done in the world because those rich, wealthy aristocrats are not going to get out into the fields and do what needs to be done to cultivate food and clothing and shelter and build homes. They're not going to get their hands dirty. They never in history were the ones to get their hands dirty. Go all the way back to the whatever days of Europe and all of those places. Those people were not the ones. They always had a slave or a servant contingency of people to depend on. Since the world has grown so huge in this day and time, to the point where they say we don't really need this many people on the planet anymore. We're talking nature versus nurture still. Listen carefully. Then let us just whittle this population down to what we consider to be a manageable amount of people. People we can just oversee, people that we can train, the ones who we leave living, we can train them to be their masters. Slavery never changes. There's the master, and then there are those who he assigns to be masters over the lower classes of people. This happened from India all the way to America. The caste system in India did the same thing. There's the Brahmas that's ruling from the top, and it whittles all the way down to those who are ruling over the bottom layer called untouchables. This is how we must understand the world that we're living in, because the world that we're living in is not a natural world. It's not. It's a normal world, but it's not a natural world. I'll explain the difference in a moment when I bring up my notes. But I felt as though we needed this primer so that we can all begin the next level of this Nunetics journey at the same point in the race, at the beginning line before the pistol goes off. I want all of us lined up and ready, committed to the race. And the race is not to become a superior race. The race is for human excellence. Once you lose your grasp of what human excellence is, you have lost your grasp of what the soul has been created for in you. The soul was not created to chase skin color and pigmentation. The soul was not invented to weigh the value of melanin in your flesh color. That's not what the soul is. The soul was not invented to say that if you were born in Antarctica, you are less of a human than if you were born in Detroit, Michigan. That's not what the soul, that's what humans do. That's that artificial difference that I spoke about in my book called Artificial Differences. If you don't have that book, you need to get that book. What I'm teaching you is actually a continuum. I teach on some of the same things over and over again, but I always give you extra layers of information that are necessary for dealing in the world that we're dealing in now. Some people are losing their minds, literally. That's not an abstract statement. Some people are literally just forgetting who they are, becoming so messed up mentally and emotionally, becoming distracted. And if we don't catch them at this stage, it'll be too late for them. And that's a part of that great elimination of the human soul. The soul is that aspect of your psyche, your mind, that is making important decisions for you. And if you don't have access to the decision maker in you, then that means somebody else has to make those decisions for you. And that's where the superpowers, quote unquote, that's where they step in. They are ready, willing, and able to make most of your important decisions. And I didn't think they'd go this far, but they're deciding now who you marry. They're deciding now whether you should marry a male if you're a male or a female if you're a female. They're deciding now so many wild and crazy things, whether you should get an abortion at 8 months. In the ninth month, they still want to give you permission to have an abortion because they don't want you here. Haven't you figured that out yet? They don't want you here. They want a class of super elite, super wealthy running the planet. And them having all of the excursions, all of the fun, all of the fanfare, and just a few of you left to become a worker class so that they never have to get their hands dirty. So I'll fill in some of the blanks along the way. I thought I needed to just say that to you in this first hour. And continue to pay attention as I bring up my notes. This is going to be super good for you. Pay attention. So we begin once again with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, with Allah's signature. We're talking about nature versus nurture today on this Sunday, November 3rd, 2024. If you're just joining us and you've never seen this face before, I am your international instructor, Benjamin Bilal. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for your patience. Nature versus nurture. We're beginning with the signature of Allah, the source creator. Allah begins us on the pathway or on the journey towards discovering His uniqueness, called Ahad in the Quran. We're on a journey to discover Allah's Ahad. And it begins with the discovery of the treasure troves of wisdom, information, guidance that Allah has power packed into each and every morsel of creation. And if we do not get the proper initiation by evaluating, studying Allah's fitrah, the nature is what we're talking about when we say fitrah, the way nature behaves. If we're not studying the way nature behaves, we will never, ever reach the point of development where that nature becomes disciplined enough to become that which we can use to nurture future generations, to nurture ourselves and future generations. The difference between the word nature and the word nurture, as William spoke to earlier in his opening, that difference between nature and the word nurture is the letter R. Here's nature. That's a suffix, so don't count that R. This is what we're looking for. Nurt or nurture. Nurture has an R. Nature has not yet obtained its R. And R represents movement. If you're not familiar with that, you need to purchase my book called Nunetics. The first out of 34 books that the instructor has penned within about 3 years or so. So nurture contains an R, and the R represents movement and evolution. Those two concepts packed together. Movement and evolution. That's what the letter R means. As a part of your body, that R is actually the movement of your legs going forward. Consider the top part of this R to be your belly. And consider beneath it these two pegs or these two legs to represent your legs. Moving. Is it moving backwards? No, moving forward. They got this off of the walls of ancient Kemet, now called Egypt. You see it in many different pictorial depictions when studying the hieroglyphs of ancient Egypt. Sometimes you'll see a character with both of these legs together, meaning no movement. Other times you'll see these characters with the left leg, not the right leg, the left leg forward. Because the movement forward for human beings begins on the left side, the weak side, the less domineering side. Now, I'm not talking about the brain, which begins its activities in the right hemisphere. I'm talking about the nature. I'm not talking about the nurture. I'm talking about the nature and its first movement. Its first movement is a movement it's a movement towards understanding and developing the weakness. Isn't that what the infant does? He can't walk. He can't talk. When he first starts to walk, he wobbles until he falls or grabs onto mama or something. When he first starts to talk, he talks babble, inarticulate sounds, like those cave people I mentioned earlier. So just like they say that's the beginning of human history, the babbling caveman, well, the beginning of your individual history as a human is an inarticulate speech also. So you have to strengthen those weaknesses in order to bring the right leg forward. And once the right leg is brought forward, now we can say you have advanced yourself. You can't say it just because you stuck out one leg. You can only say that baby is walking now because the baby is able to follow up that first leg with a second or secondary movement of the remaining leg. And then once the child learns to repeat that process, left leg, it doesn't have to be left literally, but left leg, left leg. Before you know it, that child is running through the house. That's progress, human progress. So that's what nurture allows you to do. We find this letter at the beginning of many words that indicate development, advancement, progress forward, growth, and change. Can anyone out there quickly give me a word that contains that letter R, which indicates movement and or evolution? Do it quickly if you already have one in mind.
Revolution.
There you go. Perfect choice. Who gave me that? Who was
Muhammad
that?
Ali.
All right, Scholar. Thanks for being with us. All right. Revolution. And I told you very often that there is no evolution. Listen carefully. There is no evolution without revolution. You know how we say in the world of Islamic thought that Allah is the guardian, evolver, and sustainer of the world? He's the guardian evolver. But what they missed was something that Instructor Bilal caught. And I'm not being arrogant, I'm being thankful to Allah for this. Because they have truncated the sciences, we are not in touch with this level of scholarship. Allah is the guardian evolver, but there is something that precedes evolution that they are not telling us about because they themselves don't know it. And I'm teaching them now, so they need to go back and open their textbooks and their dictionaries and their other books of scholarship. Or they need to begin to write new books based on what Allah has gifted us with, not just me, He's gifted us with this information because of the study of Nunetics and letter meanings. If you look at the title Rabb, R-A-B-B, they say Allah is the Rabb of al-Alameen. He is the, they say, guardian, evolver, and sustainer of all systems, of all worlds, they say, of all, so we use that, of all the worlds. We say of all systems of knowledge. Now, if you look at the true science of how worlds come into existence, even your individual world, you are a world in and of yourself. How do these worlds come into existence? They come into existence through a process of not only evolution, but that evolution is preceded by what we are now calling revolution. Something had to revolve. Revolve means to go all the way around until you reach the other side. Revolving door. You just keep pushing, and if you keep pushing, you're going to come back to where you started. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Certainly we belong to Allah, and it is to Allah that we are all constantly returning. That's a revolving door, isn't it? And that's what Allah does by bringing created things into existence, first based on a revolution of movement, which takes things from the invisible into the visible. And then out of the invisible, when this body dies, back into into the invisible, out of the visible, back into the visible. So this world is a revolving door. So it's not just evolution. Keep that in mind. Evolution is secondary. Involution is the initial movement. Involution, then evolution. In means things have to begin to register inside. Instructor, why are you giving us this complicated stuff to write down? My brain is too full. I mean, I got too many college classes. I got to run a household and chase rugrats around all day. Should be ashamed of yourself calling them. But I don't have time for, you don't have time to study the nature of how life is born onto this planet. You're a father and you never studied what your wife was going through when she was pregnant with the ones that you're now calling rugrats. You never studied what she was going through. You never thought about the idea that what's in her belly was not always there. Not as the child you know and recognize upon delivery of that baby from the womb. You know that part forward. See, you know its evolution, but did you know anything about its involution? What was taking place in her belly that caused those elements to come together as an involved series of activities? They became involved to bring it to the level where we could call it matter, M-A-T-T-E-R. And when she pushes that matter out after 9 to 10 months, then that matter makes her a mother. They're the same word. The mother is the one responsible for producing the matter because what she became involved in when that sperm hit her ovum brought life forces and life energies out of the ether. We don't even know where this life force came from. It's all by the grace and mercy of Allah. But it was able to ignite a life force in her, beginning with the heart, developing into the skeletal system and the blood system and the five senses, and all of these different things came out of nowhere into somewhere. You look at the picture of the baby in the womb when they say, oh, it's just 3 months old. Okay, you don't see any real eyes or nose or anything. You just see, kind of shadowy kinds of that must be the head, I think. Let me turn the sonogram upside down, maybe. Oh, okay, I got it the right way now. Yeah, that must be his head right there. And those must be his feet. Let a couple of more months go by. You look at the next sonogram. Oh, I can count his toes in this one. I saw a sonogram of my granddaughter to be that scared me. I thought she had been born. This color photography was so vivid that I thought the baby was somewhere in the room when she took the sonogram. This is how sophisticated these sonogram pictures are becoming. You know it if you're a new mother. So, this is so beautiful when you understand it. How did that form get there? It got there through the process of involution. What I'm telling you, you can find in any large dictionary. Just look up the word involution, and it'll give you even more than what I'm telling you. So you come from involution, and then you're born down the chute. The package is ready to be delivered. And that's why you can't be just on your own interfering with the delivery of that package. Do you know what would happen in this country if a person interfered with the delivery of a package? Imagine a package now being sent from Allah. Forget your Auntie Susan. I'm talking about a package being delivered from the source creator to help the world and in its situation. To help someone on this planet who Allah is sending that child to assist, sending that child to maybe someday marry and have children by themselves who could become great people, great humans on this planet. And Allah is sending, He put the stamp of approval on it. He's wrapping it in matter, in material, in flesh, in bones, and blood, and all of the things the Quran speaks about in those 7 stages of development in the womb. Then Allah says, and thereafter another creation, meaning here's the delivery. And you on your own, or you as a knucklehead listening to somebody else who thinks they know you and about you better than you do, they just wantonly, recklessly say, you don't need a baby right now. You should go back to college. Or they say that nigga that's the father, is that Ralph? Oh man, you ain't having no baby by Ralph. Now you ain't bringing no baby in this house by that nigga. Get rid of it. See how flippant we are? You don't know what the long chain of genetics is that may be possibly producing a genius through nigga Ralph. Excuse me, I got to talk to some people like this. But nigga Ralph, he ain't a bad dude. He ain't evil or nothing. He just don't have a whole lot of ambition. But that doesn't have anything to do with Ralph Jr. The possibilities for that child. You understand? So imagine now Allah is sending a package and you, in real life, let's say, well, take Allah out of it because Allah doesn't, but Allah does send packages. He sends them through messengers. That's what we call the male men and the male women, the male people who deliver Allah's messages. Like me, I'm delivering a message from Allah. Whenever I quote the Quran or try to give you understanding from the Quran, it doesn't make me a prophet or anything like that. Allah never speaks about the ends of messengers in the Quran. A messenger has an assignment, but the male person who is the messenger, they better deliver the package like they received it. You don't go in there and start fiddling with the mail, opening the mail and then gluing it back and seeing if there's anything expensive in there. That's not what male people are supposed to. You can get arrested. So how come you can't get arrested for tampering with Allah's mail that He chose to send to a particular household, to a particular country? Look at the war-torn ravaging of a land and people happening in Gaza right now. You're going to say, let's institute a program for 90% aborted children from this point on? If we ever get settled again, we have too many people and we can't afford to have any more babies. We're sick with war and famine and all of these other things. Are you going to be the human being that says no more babies for the Gazian people, for the West Bank people? Jews are losing lives in those same wars. Are we going to be the ones to advocate for Jewish people, Jewish women having abortions? There are already a minimum number of people on the planet. There are already not that many of them. They would look at you cross-eyed and come after you if you suggested that they should institute a countrywide law for them to abort their children. They'd come get you. But in the African American community, so-called, they won't come get you. As a matter of fact, you can set up your planned program, your Planned Parenthood programs for aborting fetuses, you can set that up right in the middle of the Black community. And they'll welcome you. What took you so long to get here? We're having too many babies. The only reason it seems like we're having too many babies is because most of us don't know what to do with babies. We don't know what that package was sent to us for. We just see it as another food stamp effort. We see it as another number to add to the prison population. See, we don't know how to look at what Allah gives us as prizes, as treasures. Just think about a human being that you do admire, that you do think contributed a whole lot to human history, to human civilization, and to human advancement, and look at his family or her family situations. Wasn't always a glorious history of lineage. If I were to just stick to the entertainment industry, a lot of Black folks, we love James Brown. We say, wow, man, he was such a great singer, dancer, entertainer. But did you know anything about his personal history? It was devastating. The man was born in a shack. His mama became a hoe. Excuse the expression. These are his, writings. His mother went into prostitution. His daddy left him as a child. He had to fend for himself. You understand? So does that mean that had we had foresight of that, we should have been advocating for the abortion of unborn James Brown? Michael Jackson, he's born in a house of he wouldn't get 9 children after a couple of more were born. After one more was born, actually. There were 9 children in that little teeny weeny house in Gary, Indiana. Joe was out there working the steel mill and working hard and in his little band making a few dollars a weekend and all of that. Would we be the ones to say, well, we know how this is going to turn out. There's too many babies. Maybe I should abort this one that we were going to name Michael, Let's abort him. We got too many children already. We got them sleeping 3 to a room. In 2 bedrooms, we got 9 children sleeping in two different rooms, living room included. 3 of them on the couch, 2 of them on the bunk beds, another one on a cot. Let's just start aborting these babies. There's too many of them. No, that's not how the natural human mind works. The natural human mind finds a reason to hope, finds a reason to go inside of themselves and pray and meditate and contemplate and organize their thoughts. Albert Einstein only went to the 3rd grade. You think his family was sitting around having all of these high hopes for him? But did they abort him? No. If nature wants you aborted, nature herself will get rid of you. That's the choice you make. And I know it's not, 1,000% across the board what I'm telling you right now, but it's enough of a percentage that I think you'll be able to identify with it. Nature, sometimes without you knowing the reason why, you're anticipating this child. And in the 4th month, 5th month, something happens. It's happened in my history of having children. Something happens. She starts bleeding, or she wakes up in the morning. She says, I can't feel him kicking. Some of you women can identify with this. And I'm not trying to be gruesome. I'm trying to make a point. I don't feel the baby because she's right in touch with that child, of course. The father is not. She's in touch with it. She can feel, she looks forward to the baby kicking in her. You know what I'm saying? Maybe moving in an elbow. Oh, that's his elbow. That hurts. That's uncomfortable. But she is glad as heck that he moved for another day. But sometimes things happen and fates are not on her side and the baby stops moving. She goes to the hospital. They do an exam. They say, I'm sorry, we got to go get him. We got to go in and get him because he's not moving. One of the worst days in life for any mother, especially to hear. One of the worst things she can hear on any day of her life. that her baby is no longer with her. Right? So nature decides these things. Sometimes natural disasters come, windstorms and hurricanes and tornadoes, and natural phenomena eliminates many forms of life, including human life. Nature mostly warns you first, not all of the time, but mostly nature will warn you. And you'll know nature is warning you because you look around and all of the animals are out of there. Well, the birds, you don't see nothing flying. You don't see nothing scurrying across the sand or the ground like you used to see. No birds in the trees. The human being should ask himself, wait a minute now, after decades of seeing these creatures come out every morning, all of a sudden I wake up and there's a strange feeling in the air and the animals have gone. That doesn't tell you I had better seek some high ground. But human beings are human beings and they don't always leave when the environment shouts fire. They think like the people of Noah. I got a little bit more time to party. It's not right on us. It's in California. It's not in Texas yet. It's not in North Carolina yet. We got a little bit more time to party. When Allah gave you that information for preparation's sake, we are in a very serious moment of preparation as we speak for not so much natural disasters, but for the unnatural disasters, the things that are really not being controlled and brought about by nature herself. It's being brought about by people who have learned the science of weather manipulation, weather modification. Look those terms up. You can easily access this information. This is not conspiracy theory. This is the sciences themselves telling us these things. And they say, and this is how we do it. This is how we manipulate the weather. Here's how we cause rainstorms and blizzards and tsunamis. You know what a tsunami is? They can cause tsunamis. And they can cause weather to happen on your side of the block and leave the other side of the block relatively unscathed. It happened in Cuba. This side of the street, toe up from the floor up. That side of the street, like nothing happened. The human being has a tremendous amount of responsibility that has been given to him by his source creator as a trust. And the human being tends to ignore the fact that it is a trust. And he begins to do just what he wants to do, the way he wants to do it, irregardless of what previous scriptures have said happened to people like this who just do the do and don't care about the consequences or the responsibilities. And he ends up wiping out a considerable number of innocent lives in the process. You don't think that there's some moment where he's going to have to answer for these things? Allah tells you that throughout the Quran. You can't just keep going on and going on and going on and doing what you want and increasing the perfidy and the crime and the corruption, thinking that you're going to be the winner at the end of it. That's not going to happen. And I'm here to tell you also that you're living in one of those periods in history that represents the end of it. If you're not looking through scriptural eyes, you won't see it. If you're looking through just the mundane, what's happening today in my life compared to what happened 10 years ago, oh, this must be the judgment of God. Oh, we must be getting ready to all be just snuffed out. No, there are those who are going to be snuffed out, as you're saying it, and there are those who are going to be saved and rewarded. And there's going to be those who will inherit the earth, according to the Quran. They're called the Warithin. The Warithin, the inheritors of El Ard. El Warithin. So how are you going to inherit the earth if you're not here? How are you going to inherit the earth if you think God hates you so much that he just going to erase the blackboard? Let's start this thing. He can do that. He tells you that in the Quran. Allah says, if he were to eliminate the mother of Isa, Maryam, eliminate Isa, and eliminate all of the life on the back of the earth. When he says the life on the back of the earth, he's including all biology, not just humans. You get rid of the squirrels, the turtles, the fish, the birds, the bees, the flowers, and the trees. And he said, and he wants to start over. It says nothing precludes him from doing so. He's trying to give you some indication as to what his power is. But he is constantly, constantly giving the human being another chance for grace. Nature is amoral, while things that are nurtured take on moral characteristics. Nature is amoral. Remember the a privative? A means that whatever word comes after that, it's not. It means it's not that. So nature is not moral. It's not making moral decisions. While things that are nurtured, things that have that R energy, that movement, all things that move have energy. Those things take on moral characteristics because they can make choices. So when we use the term moral, we simply mean that it has the ability to decide the best option between two choices. If the choice we make leaves our soul content and satisfied, then the choice was a good choice. If it leaves us despondent or unfulfilled, it most likely was a bad or immoral decision. So there are moral decisions based on decisions that we make once presented with two options, at least two options. Then there is amoral. That means that moral thinking and decision making has nothing to do with what I'm doing or with what nature is doing. And then there is immoral, which means that you had a choice and you purposely or consciously decided to do the incorrect thing, the wrong thing, the evil, the bad thing. This decision-making capacity is actually embedded within our genes as intelligence. You've gotten that lesson over and over again. The word intelligence means the internal, in, communication, telephone, telegram, communication. Coming from where? From the gens or the genes. It is a native or natural part of your genetic makeup. Intelligence. Nobody gives it to you. Your kindergarten teacher does not give you intelligence, nor does your parent give you intelligence, nor do your friends that you play with in the playground as you grow. They're not the ones providing you with intelligence. Allah has clocked intelligence within the very fabric of your genes, your DNA, RNA makeup. Intelligence is embedded, listen carefully, embedded within our human flesh and is safeguarded by our genes. We're going to go a little bitty bit deeper right now. You know your instructor. But we're going to conclude this today. Intelligence is embedded within our human flesh and it is safeguarded by our genes operating within our cells. So here's your cell over here on the right. And within the core of the cell is what's called the nucleus, where these X-looking factors are existing. The nucleus, the middle, the core, and guard the middle salat, salatul wusta. So everything that you see that's necessary for your survival that ends up in the middle of something as the core factor responsible for its survival, that's a nucleus. So when Allah says to guard Salatul Wusta, that means that it is responsible for your very survival. You can get away with not doing some of the other things immediately, but always pay attention to the nucleus. So here you have the total chromosome. It contains what's called a centromere, as opposed to the telomere. And these telomeres at the ends of this fabric are responsible for the longevity of your life, even your individual life. There are things that our scientists who are corrupted and crooked, and those scientists on that side of the fence, there are things that they designed in the very food and drink that they've given us that are designed to whittle away at the telomeres within your genes so that they can shorten your life, lengthen the life if they choose to. You know, human beings used to live much longer than this 74 years or whatever they're saying the average human lives now. Humans used to live into the hundreds. You read about that in the Bible and the Quran because people understood the proper upkeep of their telomere. But now they purposely inundate us with sugary, sweet stuff and salty stuff and poisonous foods so that it works against the proper growth and development and continuation of our telomeres. And of course, that's the essential part of the DNA, which is the main construction related to the gene. The gene. Somebody give me a Quranically consonantal connected word with the word gene. Be fast.
Jinn.
Yes. Thank you, William. And all of you, if you have any kind of hearing capacity, you could hear that connection. Jinn, gene. It's just a difference of a vowel. And what Instructor Bilal has been teaching you now for better than 10 years is that if it is consonantally connected, it's going to be connected thematically. What I mean by thematically is not that it's going to mean that as a dictionary meaning or a dictionary definition. When you look up gene, you're not going to see jinn. When you look up jinn in the lexicon, Arabic lexicon, you're not going to see gene. What I'm telling you is a new phenomenon on this planet, or at best, a resurrected phenomenon, because I believe that Muslims understood this phenomenon about 1,200, 1,300 years ago before they decided to crash that concept and trash that concept in favor of eliminating the proto-root meanings of words, the proto-root letters for words, in favor of the tri-consonantal words that are now presently established for learning Arabic, tri-consonantal, where they can determine the meanings and force them down your throat. This is what this means. Why does it mean that? Is there something in the letters? No, the letters mean nothing. That doesn't make sense. Well, how do we know what they mean? Because we told you, see. Mr. Lane told you, you know, whoever the dictionary is, he told you. That's what that means. Whereas the Fitra-based letter system called Nunetics is allowing the Fitra to tell you what that means. So because of that, and because the human mind cannot escape these 7 areas of articulation in the mouth, it means that all of these sounds that are able to come out of the mouth are going to be connected to the psyche. And connected to the psyche simply means that when we hear those sounds or when we express those sounds, it automatically gives us meaning in the mind because those sounds in and of themselves have meaning. If I say, ooh, we know what that means, and it's not even a word. If I say, ah, Those are not even words, but you know what they mean. Eureka. Oh, now I understand what you're saying. Ah, the open mouth. Ah. If I say shh, 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 that's not even a word, but you know what it means. So if shh means to be quiet, then what does the letter sheen mean? You see where I'm going if you haven't been here already? If I say t, the T sound, or if I say d, the D sound, they both sound very close to each other, the T and the D. What's the difference? The difference between the T and the D is that the T sound is the sound of tapping. So your tongue is actually tapping on the back of your top two front teeth when you say T. It's tapping. See how the word tap has the T? Tap, tap, tap. But look at the nature of it now. Go deep into the study of what we're telling you with these letters. The tongue is touching the back of the top two front teeth in order to pronounce the sound T or the letter tall. Same thing, just a different variation. Tall, that letter. T, tall. It's tapping. The letter tau in Arabic looks like the profile of a very pregnant woman's belly. If you turn her sideways, the tau looks like a very pregnant woman. What happens within the womb of that woman after 9 months? The baby begins to do what? Tap. They call it kicking, elbowing her, but he's tapping inside of her. This is where these concepts come from. The word for baby in the Quran and in the Arabic language is tifl, beginning with that same letter, tau, tifl, tau, fa, lam. Great indications. Don't tell me that these letters don't have deep meanings. These letters are going to bring about a whole new level of scholarship for people who look like you and me when we look in the mirror every morning. Wherever you're from, Egypt, Indonesia, wherever you're from, England, wherever you're from. If you study Nunetics and the method and the method that I'm teaching you, and the proper discernment that these letters give the mind, and begin to write those things down when they come to you, you will be in charge of bringing in a whole new system of communication for humans that are going to unite humans, not divide humans. As they say, happened in the beginning when the whole world spoke one language, according to the Bible and the Quran. It says it in other words. Then there became a division of what? The tongues. See? The languages. And that's what caused all of this mess up. So if somebody comes into the world and Allah gives them the true gift of being able to unite all of these languages, again, based on 7 pronunciations in the mouth and what they mean psychically, man, oh man, what a trust Allah has given us. So take this. This is life and death, what I'm teaching you right now, in terms of the life and death of the intellect. Because as you can see, the majority of the world is now going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Can't get an intelligible word out of the politicians, out of the economists, out of the people in charge of your social services. And these people are talking stuff that we would never have thought would have been the conversation of the day a couple of decades ago. But it's been an incrementally growing phenomenon in the world to purposely and consciously dumb down the masses of people. Dumb down, D-U-M-B, silent B. Dumb. Sounds like D-U-M. Then why they add a B if it wasn't necessary? These are the other questions you should be asking as you learn language. How come numb has a silent B? Why didn't they just leave it N-U-M? Why didn't they just leave dumb, D-U-M? Because they're including picture symbolism in their meanings. And if you look at the capital letter B, it's a profile of your top and bottom lip. The capital letter B, profile of your top and bottom lip. Let's look at it in real time. There they go. So this is your top lip, and this is your bottom lip. And as you can see in the Times Roman font, the bottom lip is protruding just a little bit more out from the face than the top lip. And then you have the small b, which has no top at all. Now, what I'm about to teach you is going to be super duper fantastic and interesting, so pay attention. B obviously represents the ability to articulate, the ability to speak. The first speech is called babble or baby. You see these B's? Baby talk. But when the two lips remain closed, you are not articulating. There is an inability to articulate when both lips remain closed. When the lips open, that's when sounds and words and concept and all of these other things, shouts and screams, whatever, can come out. But if they remain closed, it means that there is absolutely no articulation taking place at that time. Does that mean the person doesn't know anything? No. It means that the person, in many cases, is choosing not to speak. And whenever a person presents themselves as someone who cannot or will not speak, that's called dumb. If they can speak and don't speak, we call it playing dumb. Oh, you're playing dumb. You're in the precinct and you don't want to tell us who killed that guy? And we know you know. I don't know, Mr. Ossifer. I have no, I wasn't even there. We caught you there. What do you mean? But the person is playing dumb. You know you don't have to squeal on yourself if you committed a crime and they caught you and they tell us what happened. You have a constitutional right to be dumb, to play dumb. It's an amazing phenomenon. Now these letters have other significances that we're not going to go through today. That's not the purpose of today's class. But just be aware. Don't get the book, the N word for that one. So you have to get Nunetics if you don't have it, and order the book called The N Word. I'll put it here so that when people see it on YouTube, they'll know. Get the Nunetics book. Oops. Yeah. And the N Word. So that's how this goes. And you can get it from the website, nuneticsinstitute.org. So go ahead and order it while you're thinking about it. It'll get away from you. nuneticsinstitute.org, where you're going to see 34. Yeah, when I add this latest one, the latest one is not up, but you're going to see 23 books that Instructor Bilal has already authored, beginning with Nunetics. All right. All right, let's continue and speed it up just a little bit. The intellect is different than the intelligence. Some dictionaries have them as meaning almost the same thing. They don't. The intellect is a part of the mind, and it is created and embedded within our social construct, which is then safeguarded by our memes. Blah, blah, blah. Big sentences, big words. Yeah, I'm here to help you take big words and whittle them down to manageable words in your mind. So there's a difference between intellect and intelligence. The intellect is a part of the mind and is created and embedded within our social construct. That means that it is your social environment that develops your intellect. How are you going to choose between things if you don't even know that there are things around you? The baby can't possibly have an intellect when it's born. There was nothing around it to choose from. It couldn't even choose who its mother was. You had to look at her a few times after you're feeding her and got your boobies in her mouth. Well, she's got her boobies in your mouth. And you see it's the same face. She feels the same. She smells the same. This must be an important person. Baby couldn't determine that coming straight out of the womb until it got a little bit familiar with what was in its environment. And it was the environment that began to quicken the intellect's processing of information. You're just coming into information. No information in the womb. What was he trying to learn in there? No, he was in the process of involution. Now he's in the process of evolution or evolution. And you learn when you're within the context of evolution, because you're able to differentiate between things now. And again, it's the social arena, the social environment, the social construct, which is then safeguarded by our memes. Memes are environmental genes. There are memes and there are genes. Memes, genes. The genes are biological. The memes are sociological. See? Social construct. So the things that you are learning and that your intellect is beginning to take hold of and evaluate and assess and utilize, those things from your environment that are dawning upon the intellect are called memes, especially because you're seeking them over and over again. While inside of you, biologically speaking, your genes are doing exactly the same thing. They're being impacted, but they're being impacted by what the intelligence is dictating, the internal communication going on between your genes. That's what keeps your heart beating. That's what keeps your blood flowing. There's no command coming from the intellect that says, keep my heart beating, please, or keep that blood flowing in the right direction. Or, as I'm running around the track, hey, I need to increase the heart rate. There's nothing in your mind that's telling it to do that. It knows automatically to increase the blood flow or the flow of the oxygen going into the body through the lungs, etc. That's your intelligence operating those features. But in the social environment, it's your intellect that has to tell you, or that should be telling you, run in the opposite direction of the gunshot, please. Do it now. Where the person who's not totally grounded in reality will actually pick up his 3-year-old child, and instead of running away from the danger, away from the loud noise, away from the crowd that he hears gathering around the corner, he picks that 3-year-old up and he runs right up to the spot where all of the dangerous stuff is beginning to happen. What's going on, man? Oh, who got shot? Oh, that was Junior that got, oh, shoot. Yeah, shoot. That's the intellect deciding that. That's how you know you have a faulty, deformed intellect. There's nothing wrong with your body's signaling to tell you get the hell out of there. You got nervous, you started sweating, and then you still ran into the opposite direction of what your intellect was trying to warn you not to do. And if you do that long enough and hard enough, the intellect begins to get lower and lower as far as its voice of consciousness, lower and lower, until when the next event happens that's dangerous, the intellect will hardly even warn you. Said, I done told this dude 3 times already this week not to run into danger. If he don't care, I don't care. That's what your intellect says. I'm not going to waste my energy trying to warn you. If you don't care, guess what? You're on your own, partner. All right? So memes consist of repeated social behaviors. These behaviors create our norms, and our norms eventually cause these behaviors to appear as normal. Normal. So when people say, hey, that's normal, don't let them stop there. You got to ask yourself, okay, if it's normal, I still need to know whether it's natural. People say sex is normal. So it doesn't matter how you have sex, who you have sex with. This is what they tell you right now in the media. It doesn't matter who you have sex with. Doesn't matter how often you have sex. Doesn't matter whether you have sex with one person or 10 people at a time. You know? the Diddy method. Doesn't matter because sex is normal. And they're right, sex is normal. But again, normal has to do with norms, and norms are created based on repeated behaviors. That's all it takes for something to become normal. But is it natural? Do you see creatures in the fitrah gathering together at the anthill and just having wanton, multiple partner intercourse with each other? Is that what the frogs do? Even the dogs, you might see two dogs in the street, one male trying to hump on the back of a female, but you don't see 10 different groups of dogs doing that in one place because it's unnatural. That's not how nature operates. Allah has created animals also to have a sense of shame. Allah has created animals also to have a seasonal proclivity for those kinds of behaviors in public. So there's a season for dogs to have intercourse. There's a season for other creatures to get pregnant and be pregnant to increase the number of people in that, or number of animals or insects in that particular brood or in that particular area. And once the season is gone, they don't even have the urge. So what in the hell happened to humans? When humans 24/7 have an urge to hump on each other, there's something wrong with you. And unless you recognize that there's a malfunctioning of your human system, you won't be able to garner enough strength and enough sense of purpose to begin to make the correction. And you will then be considered on the side of those who have eliminated their soul, because the soul is what's giving you that moral consciousness. The soul is what is fueling your intellect to do the right thing. So when you keep ignoring that plea from your own soul to do the right thing, to do the right thing in the right moment at the right time, this is not the time. There are priorities right now with what's going on. There's a battle in the sky going on right now. So again, memes consist of repeated social behaviors. If you do it once, you do it twice, it's no big deal. But when you do it all of the time, it becomes mimetic or a meme for you. These behaviors create our norms, and our norms eventually cause these behaviors to appear as normal, but normal is not necessarily natural. All natural behaviors are supported by Allah's fitrah, the natural patterns represented by and in nature itself. So if you want to know the difference between normal behaviors and natural behaviors, both of them are behaviors that are being repeated over and over again. But the ones that are natural are the ones that have natural patterns related to what you can find in nature itself. Can you find creatures in the fitrah who spin on their heads as entertainment? Do you find creatures in the fitrah who have a sport that involves punching each other in the head ceaselessly for many, many years and decades at a time until you become unable to speak? You become dumb. Is there a sport like that in the fitrah? Now we know kangaroos, they punch at each other or whatever. You know, we know the rams. The rams will back up and run into each other and just boom, boom into their big old horns. But do you know that those horns are created by Allah with enough spongy material that it's almost like somebody just slapping you upside your head? So the ones who do run into each other like that are prepared for that by the fitrah. But the ones who stand in the boxing ring without a boxing, whatever you call that. What do you call that? I keep forgetting it. The protection for the boxer. It's not a helmet. What is it?
Headgear. Headgear.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean. The headgear. Humans have to have a headgear. Football. Look at football and how they ram into each other with their helmets. And now they're telling you It's like every third professional football player, and not even professional. Now they're finding this happening in the grade school and especially in the high school football, that these children are coming out years later or sometimes in the moment with severe neck injuries, spinal injuries. So why would you keep advocating that for your children and your grandchildren? Oh, you should be in the football team, you're in the football team. Yo, you big, yo. You should be in the Why? Why would I submit my child and his brain to that kind of torment? When it's unnatural. Yeah, it might be the norm. It might be what people normally do, but it's not natural. So the fitra is here to separate the normal from the natural and to keep you to stay way away from the abnormal. It's enough to be normal and not to be correct, but to add abnormal on top of not, being natural. Let's continue. So here are all of the words that are connected with the human intellect: reason, creativity, information, perception, feeling, mind. Don't worry about them putting intelligent. I told you they mixed them up in the dictionary. Benefit, empathy, emotions, judgment, perceiving, perception, mentality, communication, decision, abstract, temper, think, brain, knowledge. Read all of that on your own. Skill, analysis. All of this is connected with the intellect, the internal election, the internal choice making that Allah designed your mind to do. And your mind is able to take you above and beyond anywhere that your intelligence has been charted to go. The superior activity is in the intellect, not in the intelligence. Because there are many things that your body has been designed to do in terms of its body intelligence that are limited. They are limited, but your mind and its intellectual capacity is unlimited. Whatever you can think of, you can actually achieve. Even if it is dastardly, even if it is evil. Look at Bill Gates, how evil this man is, but look at what he's been able to achieve. George Soros, these are multi-billionaires on this planet. Look at what they've been able to manipulate in the world for money reasons and for power's sake. Why? Because they fed it to the intellect. The intellect is amoral. In this instance, it is not, no, I'm not even going to say it's amoral. The intellect is either moral or immoral. Amoral is what your intelligence is doing. Moral or immoral is what the intellect is deciding upon. It's the decision maker. Now, our genes have been pre-programmed by the source creator, but can be overridden by mimetic information from the environment. Genes pre-programmed before your body gets here as a delivery out of your mother. Your genes are already pre-programmed to do what they are conditioned to do. But that conditioning can be overridden. They can be silenced by the environmental information called mimetic information coming from the surroundings, coming from your environment. The environmental stimuli can override the biologic stimuli. The mind is the place where moral decision-making takes place. When we continue to ponder moral questions, our ultimate decisions will be either clean or polluted. Those decisions will end up either clean, that was a clean, clear decision. Thank you, child, for thinking on that level. Or they will be polluted. Son, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you think knocking that girl up in your junior high school class it should be okay with all of us. You really believe that, son? Yeah, Sammy did. He did. He's all right with it. And his family didn't argue with him. well, that's not this family. Who's going to pay for the diapers and the food and all of that, and take out and take off of work and take it to the hospital when it need? Who's doing all of that? Son. He's let the light of his son go out, and he's not thinking right. So his intellect becomes muddied. His intellect becomes putrefied. It becomes putrid. So this is how morals came to symbolize morality. The combination of the letters M and R represent turbulent water that is moving. Whenever you see that letter in English, M, or in Arabic as meme, it doesn't just mean water, like a still bowl of water, or river that has become balanced. That's not meme. Meme must include turbulence. It must include movement that is creating waves. You know how they ask people, why you come over here to start trouble and you're creating all of these waves? We were at peace before you got here. That's meme. And the R means movement. So waters, turbulent waters that are constantly moving. That's what a wave is. Water waves are caused by the movement of air in the atmosphere pushing on the still waters of the sea. So do you see what I'm talking about now? When it comes to the movement of waves, there are certain things happening in the fitrah to create waves. And this is guidance from Allah, our source creator. You have 4 elements in the world that you're dealing with. You know what they are. They are water. We have that in the wave. There is air that is invisible, that is operating to stimulate or push the water. Air, breeze. It's pushing the water so that the water begins to ripple. You have even the sunlight and the heat that is causing the air to turn into other forms of its fitrah. Become humidity, become all of these different things, all of the way up to becoming a cloud. We spoke about that in several classes, right? So it's the sunlight that's causing a lot of that to happen. Cause the waters to become distilled, causes the water to become purified in some cases. It leaves the gunky stuff, the garbage stuff in the ocean, and it only brings up and transforms that which is pure. These are all speaking to phenomena that Allah has created not only to happen in the physical environment of the physical fitrah, but He has also created them to happen on the abstract level within the human being, him and herself. These are signs as to how we can become more purified people on the human level. We can become more and more excellent in this human form than just growing up and thinking that everything is just what it is. We have no power to change anything in our lives. We have no power and no decision making that's going to cause our lives to be better. Whatever conditions we've been born with is just what we have to accept. That is the biggest lie that has been told to humanity over and over again. You can literally be what you're striving to be. That in the Quran, Allah gives the human being nothing except for what he strives for. And he should know that his striving will soon produce. That's your Quran. You should join us in believing it. The human being gets nothing at all except what he's there. If you don't do anything, you don't get anything. That's why you're in the condition you're in now, and that's why you're complaining. But you got to put some effort, like the winds that are hitting and whipping those waters into waves. The wave is a symbol of life. You know the wave. You got brain waves. You got air waves. You're hearing my voice right now through an airwave. If I talk to you on the phone, I'm talking through the air. If I'm outside and people are playing music as they pass in the car, that music is being translated by the airwaves. And the airwaves are exactly like the water waves in their nature, in their fitral, except that the airwaves are a higher expression of the water waves. It's beautiful when you understand it. So it's the same thing with morals. There's morals on the level of the water communication, but then there are higher morals that we call ethics. In the same way that a pond is water, but it's very limited. That's how your morals are. Your morals should be limited to what you and your little family group does. Maybe the neighborhood, maybe you can practice some morality in the neighborhood. You feed somebody, that kind of thing. But the kid you're feeding 2 doors down, Johnny, he's been poor. His family, his mother and father not working. Johnny is now beginning to steal stuff from the store, and he's stealing food, not clothes and sneakers. So you come to the moral conclusion that I need to do something to help this family, even if I don't want them to know about it. I'll just leave a package or I'll send it through somebody else and say, don't tell them that it was me that did it. He's the only child appearing in class now with the dirty and rundown sneakers and the same shirt. He's growing out of it. So my moral sense says, let me try and do something, let me find a clothing sale or something, or flea market, or, whatever, and help this person. You see how that goes? Kareem, for some reason, your phone keeps opening. I'll let you know when it happens. Okay. All right. So this is what we're talking about, 2 different levels. Now, when you begin to go and help people who are outside of your neighborhood, you begin to help people who are outside of your immediate community or your immediate so-called race or ethnic group and all of that. And these people you want to help now, they don't even, they speak Ukrainian, Russian or something else. They speak, Senegalese. They're from Tanzania. They're from South Africa. They're from all of these other places. You ain't never been there. You can hardly find it on a map, but you heard that they're suffering over there. So you write a check or you get together some stuff, you put it in a box, you drop it in the mail, and you send it to whoever's collecting clothes and money and food and whatever, canned food or whatever. You send it to those people. That's not just morality you're practicing. Those are ethics. When people receive the benefits of your grace and your charity, and they don't even know it was you, they never saw you, they can't even thank you, they can't even call you to say thank you. They don't even know it was you. They just got a bunch of stuff in the warehouse now. Some of it's from you, some of it's from other people. So what's the difference? Ethics is related to the word ether, and ether is everywhere. Ether serves the entire universe, at least this planet. We know that for sure. Ether. We're going to be talking about that ether often. So your behavior then becomes ethical. You're dealing now beyond morals and you're into the area of ethics and ethical behavior. That's how the country called Ethiopia was named by secret society people. That's not the meaning that they gave to the standard dictionaries. They say, Ethiopia means land of the blacks. You said the same thing about Egypt. Egypt means land of the blacks. That's all they want you to know. Topical, physical, outward appearances of things. But they don't want you to know that that word has deep, deep significance that goes beneath the layers of physical understanding and application into areas of spiritual, mental, moral, and emotional connections to logic. So ethiop means ethical option, and optical, things you see. Things you see in order to make choices. Options. Optics, the way you see a thing. You see a thing through your ethical eyes so that you can rationalize and analyze. They snuck that one in. The anal eyes. That's what they mean when they say analyze in psychology. They want you to look through your anal eye. Yeah, that's science for you. They don't care if it's nasty in your opinion. It's science in their opinion. Opinion, opine, option, optical, vision is what they're referring to. Because the anus has an eye. It's a single eye. Who made it that way? The creator who created everything else. But it's such a small hole. It's like the peek hole in your door if you live in the projects. Somebody banging on your door, banging on your door. You go up to the door. You don't just open it up. You don't take the chain off and just, oh, it's you. No. You look through the peephole. Well, that's what the anal eye is. It's a peephole. And that's what they wanted to reduce the majority of human thinkers down to. Not people who would be rational and reasonable and moral. They wanted to reduce humanity down to people who made decisions based on a small piece of the vision. Before I talk to you, I need to know what your political position is. Are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? Or are you an independent? Because depending on your answer will determine whether we're going to continue this conversation. That's an anal eye looking at you. And can't but so many things come out of that anal eye that are not disturbing to your senses. I don't need to say anything more about that. You understand what I'm saying? Let's continue. Now, these are the first 5 verses of the surah called Al-Alaq. I'm going to show you this quick and we'll be ready to quit. Most of you have heard these. Most of you know these by heart. If you're Muslim and you started learning some Quran, you probably started with these first 5 ayat. Let's say, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Proclaim or read in the name of thy Lord and Cherisher who created. خلق الإنسان من علق. Created man, meaning the human, out of a mere clot of congealed blood. Iqra rabbuka al-akram. Proclaim, and thy Lord is most bountiful. الذي علم بالقلم. He who taught the use of the pen. علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. Taught man that which he knew not. So most of us are familiar with that. You'll scroll back to it in the replay when you receive it. Or you'll have your Quran open to Surah 96 and read the first 5 ayat. The pen, very important concluding lesson here. The pen is the human spine. Its ink is the spermatozoa fluid. I'm using the wrong word here. Give me one moment. This should be cerebrospinal fluid. We're correct now. So again, the pen that is being spoken of in this ayat, he, meaning Allah, who taught the use of the pen. It's not just talking about the pen in your classroom or in your library when you do your study. It's talking more importantly about the human spine and the cerebrospinal fluid. If you don't know what that is, that's your homework. Now you might say, well, how do you know it's talking about how? Well, it could be just talking about a pen, instructor. No. How do you know that for sure, Mr. Instructor Benjamin, Guy, Teacher Bilal? Because Allah concludes it with "Alam al-insana ma lam ya'lam," that he taught man that which he did not know. You didn't have to be a genius to know that if you dip a quill from the back of a duck, you dip that pointy quill into some ink and then proceed to scribble on some papyrus. The human being learned that naturally. He didn't have to be taught that. He knew that. People knew that in the time of Muhammad. They weren't writing per se like that in that part of the world. They were writing in northern Arabia. And other people had the knowledge of writing on papyrus. Yeah, the human being knew that before revelation. So that's not what it's talking about. People knew how to read before the Quran got here. Just because those Arabs didn't know how to read fluently, at least, that doesn't mean that Iqra means read, because nobody in the world knew how to read. Allah wouldn't have told you that if it was already in the world as knowledge and science. Because allama al-insana ma lam ya'lam, that Allah taught the human being. And this word for taught, allama, it's right here. See? Allama. That little W looking thing on top of that pole is called a shadda, which means that you repeat this over and over again. So what is being repeated over and over again? How Allah is teaching the human being. That means that Allah never stops teaching the human being. Not then, not now. He's still teaching. He's still sending revelation. I know people don't like when I say that, but it's the truth. Revelation never ceases. You wouldn't have modernity. You wouldn't have updated inventions. You wouldn't have helicopters and telephones and cell phones and all of these things. Updated modes of communication. You wouldn't have that if Allah was not still, allama, still revealing them to who? Al-insan. You don't have to be no prophet per se to receive revelation in this regard. So this pen is one that was not known back in the day. This pen is the discovery that came along with the Quran. And that is the pen as symbolic of the human spine and its fluid, the cerebral spinal fluid that flows from the brain down the 33 chamber bones of the spine, and then chemically reverses its motion based on things that you can and should be doing in your mind. That's where you have what Salat represents taking place. When you learn how to slow down your roll and you learn how to properly meditate, you learn how to properly concentrate, and you learn how to eventually contemplate. Those three are the 1, 2, 3 power punch that Salat, as-Salat represents. Because as-Salat is able to come down those chambers in 2 separate measures of fluids. One from what is called the Pingala, and the other from what is called the Ida, I-D-A, the Ida. There's the Ida on one side and the Pingala emanating fluid down from the other side. They are able to meet each other at the bottom chamber of what is called the Sushumna. The Sushumna. And if your mind is contemplating and concentrating on certain ideas, then your mind is going to take that combination of chemicals and raise them up, back up the spine to the brain, where they can come in contact with a certain chemical composition that allows the pineal gland to literally shoot off firecrackers. Do you know that when you light pine cones on fire, it's just like fireworks on the 4th of July, but in your brain? Yeah, firecrackers. You want to know why in Rome, Italy, around the Vatican, they have all kinds of statues of pine cones? Because they understand it to be related to what the pine cone does in the brain. The pineal is what they're referring to, the pineal or the pineal gland, which if you magnify it, it looks just like a pine cone. All the little ridges and stuff on it, just look at it in science, in the science book. Looks like a little pine cone. And when the temperature gets right because you are doing the proper things to cause that energy to rise, then it does what the Quran says it's to do, and that is defeat all of your enemies. You can't be defeated when you practice the proper meditation, concentration, and contemplation. The meditation takes you back to the med or the middle, and guard the middle salat. So says the Quran. The concentration, con means with, centration from central. So now you're dealing with the central concerns that you have, not that I have or somebody else. This is talking about you. This is your obligation to make salat. You have to first have central concerns. The meditation just slows down your roll. It takes your foot off of the gas pedal. That's all the meditation does. Stop thinking about what's going on at the football game, and stop thinking about what happened when you argued with your husband or your wife, or you had a fallout with your child or something about something they did in school or whatever. You got to get that out of your head. And that takes sometimes, a good 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour worth of just sitting by yourself in many cases, or with other people who have issues and concerns they need to deal with. You can do it as a group. Just don't try to have a conversation about, what's for dinner. Just maintain silence. Greatest people on this earth who have the greatest achievements, they know this. The gurus of the world and the people, the monks and other people, they know this is the power. That's why they designed a world for us that involves constantly moving, constantly acting, even to do nothing. If we're not moving, we're thinking about moving. The mind is never still. So the first action of meditation is designed to slow down the mind. Stop thinking about listen, whatever you give your attention to, it expands. So the meditation is designed to get you to stop expanding on your problems by concentrating on them all of the time, thinking about them all of the time. You have to go from thinking about everything to thinking about no thing, called nothing. You know how to think about nothing? That sounds like a contradiction in terms, doesn't it? But that's your practice. Soon as you think about something, block it. Soon as you start getting antsy and nervous about it, block it out. Doesn't happen overnight. It happens through constant repetition. That's why salat is mandated repetitiously, but not as a ritual, as a routine. So at the end of the routine, you should see some discernible advancement in your life. You should be looking for it. You should be anticipating advancement in your thinking, in your emotionality, how you feel, how you handled that the last time. You're going to handle it differently this time because you've gained more discipline through the salat, the proper salat. So you're bringing things back to the middle so that your attention can go to that thing that you are concentrating on because you're giving it your attention. Then lastly, you're looking at those things that are causing you to form contemplation. That means with template, with a template. You're developing a template for what? For your life. What do you want to see enter into your life based on what you eliminated or eradicated from your life as activity and thinking and concerns and worries and fears, all happening in the lower register of your chakras. You got to sweep those lower three chakras of all that dust and dirt and mud, and you got to clean that up. And the first thing to do is just to shut the door on it. Don't let any more of it in. Then you begin to concentrate. Take everything and put it in the middle so you can look at it objectively. What's going on in this relationship with my wife and children and neighbors? Why am I having so many problems? Why am I running into brick walls every time I deal with these people? I know it's because they're bad people. No, see, you got to take the concentration off of all of them and you got to put it on the center guy or girl, that one right there in the seat, blaming everybody else. You got to learn how to accept responsibility for everything that's happening in your life as much as humanly possible. Now, things that are outside of your control, that's different. There's another way to handle that we're not going to discuss today. But the things that happen in the everyday, ongoing relationships that we're having with people, and how come nobody likes me? How come I can't get along with anybody? The chances are something's wrong with you. I had a couple of people in my life who I liked them, but it seems as though nobody else liked them. I have an ability to look past people's faults. That's a strength of mine. I keep friends and admirers because I can look past your faults and tap into things that other people don't appreciate about you. And sometimes that's all we want people to know. You should appreciate me for some things. So that's one of the things that involves concentration, because you got to say, let me eliminate this criticism of this person, your wife, husband, child, neighbor, whoever. Let me stop criticizing them. Let me find at least something, one thing about them that I can compliment. And when you find that one thing, you concentrate on it. When you meet them, you say, man, I know I told you this already yesterday when I saw you, man, but I'm telling you, there's just a way that you handled your 5-year-old when we were in the elevator together yesterday and you answered that question. I really admire. I wish I had thought of that when my child asked me a similar question, man. Kudos to you. You know, you should be running a counseling something for young people, man. Because that answer, it solved problems for me when I heard you say that to your 5-year-old or to your 12-year-old. Do you know what you have just done to bolster the confidence of that person you're talking to who thought you didn't like him and you didn't like him? He'd be at your door every day. Hey, man. And he'll have a whole different way of dealing with people. Eventually, he's going to develop, she's going to develop, they're going to develop a whole new way. I had that happen to me when I was involved, not involved, but the friends with some very tough gang members in my early childhood, in my teenage years. They wanted me to join. In fact, they knew not to ask me to join their gang. I've had people, rough people, I've had killers tell me, don't you ever think about going into any kind of crime. If you have a need for something or somebody's bothering you, I've had relatives, I've had uncles tell me, you don't handle that yourself. You're too precious in this family to go out like we might go out because we're gangsters. We just gangsters. My uncles told we're gangsters. That's what we do for a living. So if anything happens to you, you don't retaliate. You come, you pick up the phone, you tell us, we're right over here in Jersey. We'll be here, be to New York in 20 minutes and we'll handle it. Just tell us who it is and where to go. And I've had gangbangers in my neighborhood tell me that from the black savage nomads. And you remember these gangs, some of you in New York and Jersey. Gangster disciples. I think that was Chicago and those places. I've had to walk right through the middle of these people. Got biker gangs in Harlem. Savage nomads, they were called. The savage nomads. And I'd walk up to the Temple of Islam at that time, in the early 70s and walk right by them. They wouldn't. There's something that Allah puts a protection around you. Trust me when I tell you that. But you have to learn how to eliminate fear. That's the rough part right there. You have to learn how to not become engulfed and embedded with fear, anxiety. Allah says on the true believers, no matter whether they be from the Muslims, the Jews, the Christians, Allah says that on them will be no fear, nor shall they grieve. See, when you reach that state right there of control and discipline over those primary emotions in you and instinctive drives in you, that's when you become free. And that's when you become monumentally protected by Allah. In Surah 2, Ayat 171, he says at the end of that, to not have fear like that. So these are the people who remained disciplined and controlled throughout all periods of panic. That's in the Quran for a reason. When you achieve that level of success internally, there's basically nothing that can happen to you outside of the direct will of Allah that can harm you. Allah says they cannot harm you except for a trifling annoyance. I want to be that person that no matter what they come at me with, I just say, golly, I wish I didn't run into this guy again. Look at how the cities around the country are going nuts, becoming increasingly dangerous. It's going to become so dangerous, my people, that you're going to have to think twice about allowing your grandmother or your mother to go shopping in the daylight in the local supermarket, because they are engineering behaviors right now that are non-fitra based behaviors. And they want to multiply that behavior so that it becomes the status quo. They're doing it now in Harlem. They're doing it in Brooklyn. I'm just talking about New York right now, but I can go all the way to California and come back to the Midwest, Chicago, Detroit, all of these places. They are manufacturing mayhem by making sure the criminals know that unless we outwardly just stab somebody in the neck, we'll be in the precinct 10 minutes and out to do more stealing, robbing, and several of them are murdering people. So you have to do what's necessary in your own meditations, in your own concentration, and in your own contemplation, the forming of templates that you want replicated in you and around you as protection. Our issue is that we don't even know really truly what angels are. We think they're these little fluffy, naked cherub kinds of with wings in the back. We got to get out of that foolish thinking, that kindergarten mentality. Nunetics and its understanding is designed to bring us up into the freshly established sciences. These are not sciences like sciences that you learned in school. Most of them are false science. These are sciences that are direct extractions out of Allah's fitrah. So when you compare them with what nature tells you that thing is, it's a direct match. It's the mirror image. All right. The pen, the human spine. Its ink, the cerebrospinal fluid. The instinctive nature in animals is what dictates their sexual behaviors, and therefore mating and reproduction happen in their respective seasons, as I mentioned earlier. Humans, however, have to be taught, humans have to be taught over and over again the value of things such as semen retention. Many brothers have never heard that term. Semen retention, how to retain your semen, even during moments of relationship, physical or sexual relationship. Retaining the semen allows you to retain your energies. Releasing of the semen, especially out of the season, when you really didn't intend to, is a problem. And you also have the problem of how to secure a proper mate, because you're spilling your seed on any opening, any crevice, any crack. There you go. You hardly know her name, but you're laying down in a bed with her. You're learning these things from your superstars, Ushers and the Ditties and all of these people who are writing songs and making them very, very popular amongst your children, that have whittled down the importance of relationships and family life and child rearing and all. They pay no respect for these things that Allah has created within the fitrah of his creatures. So we're following them on the route to being what they consider to be normal, but 90% of it is not natural. Diddy's paying the price today for a bunch of activity that has nothing to do with what Allah produced in the fitrah. So humans have to be taught all over again. The science is in the understanding of these letters. We're talking Quran now. The science of understanding the letters is going to bring your mind back to its natural positioning in the fitrah. When you read, it won't be just reading a book. It's going to be reading the fitrah, reading Mother Nature, looking towards Mother Nature for the instructions. What you mean Mother Nature got instructions? Yeah, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That is the book. What book? The book of nature. In it is guidance, sure guidance. But it's only for those who are of al-muttaqin, those who have established taqwa, conscious regard for what their moral and ethical nature tells them is the right thing to do. If you're not regardful of those things, you are consigning yourself to the great elimination of the human soul. Understand these things. So humans have to be taught the value of semen retention, as well as how to secure a proper mate. We got to do these as classes in the neighborhood now. Over there in Atlanta, they have classes. They're in a class right now that they established as a nunetics class. But we have to begin bringing in information that they can teach to their children and grandchildren, or they can invite those young people to the class and teach them the value of semen retention, the value of how to choose a proper mate. They won't be thinking about some trans boy as a mate in that regard. They'll see in the fitrah as male and female, male and female. Allah created us min nafsin wahida, created us from one soul, and then from that soul, zawjaha, her mate, her corresponding mate. And then from them, multiplicity of human life. And everything that I just said in there from the Quran can be found under the microscope, in the sciences, the true sciences. So in essence, humans must be taught the uses and responsibility of this life-giving fluid called semen. And I need to take a 3-minute break. And William, if you're still with us, you can hold me down. And when I come back, it shouldn't be more than 10 minutes worth of information that I have to share.
I certainly hope that everyone is enjoying the learning, the conversation. It's something that's needed globally, but certainly here nationally, and we need it in our homes, in our individual life. The mantle of responsibility is upon each one of us in our class. There's a saying that says, "To whom much is given, much is required." So the volumes of information that we have in the Quran, the tool that we've been blessed with called Nunetics, to be able to not only to draw the lessons and the wisdom out of the Quranic language, but also out of the language of the fitrah. We've been given this so that we can use it and so that we can share it. So it's a lot, and we've been given that, but it's not too much for us. Because Allah won't put a burden on anyone that they don't have the strength to bear. So the responsibility is large, it's big, it's huge, but it's not too big. It's not too huge for any one of us or for all of us collectively. I know there was something that Instructor Kareem had shared with us back in August when he did his presentation. He was reflecting on some wisdom that we had gotten from Imam W.D. Muhammad about Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Hamd, where he told us that there's actually 7 stops in the reading of that surah, And he mentioned that he felt that that those stops were for reflection. I've heard it said recently by a person who have mastered the art of communication in with large groups, and he was talking about the value of pausing. And he was very insightful the way he explained that. He said that when you're delivering information, that instead of having the filler words like ooh, you know what I mean, those kinds of filler words or expressions, he says that it's a good place to actually pause in your delivery. And during the pause, it gives the listener the opportunity to process the information. So as we make this effort to take the information that Allah has blessed us with and to bring it into our lives, we want to be very conscious of the processing the information. So Instructor Bilal has been very efficient with sharing information with us. It's our responsibility to take the information and to process it. And that's what the research and the study is for. Listening after you receive the information, go back and listen to it time and time again, take notes and digest it and process. So with that, I'll pass the talking stick right back.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for holding me down. We were speaking about the pen, very important concept in the Quran. And we ended up talking about how humans must be taught the usage and the responsibility of this life-giving fluid. It's called a sperm in the male. Sperm. It is one of two substances that unite in order to create the furtherance of the human life or the biological life. And many of these words that begin with an S are code words. Code words. And the S will be standing for that which is secret or that which is sacred. Imam Muhammad gave us the hint when he said that the word sword is really indicating what is called the S word. And the S word is either the sacred word that we call scripture or the secret word that many of these Illuminati types and these secret society types are using over the heads of the masses of ignorant people. And that's what you use to fight people with. You use your sacred word. For Muslims, it's called the Quran. For the Christians, it's called the Bible. For the Jews, it's called the Torah. You fight off the world of corruption with your sacred word. But the people who are constantly seeking to corrupt the world, they're doing so with the secret word. They're using a language above and beyond your understanding. And they use them right in your face all of the time. But because you don't know the meanings of these words, the origins of these words, the applications of these words, they can laugh at us in our faces and we don't even know that they're talking about us. So likewise, the sperm is that which represents the secret, permanent. They are establishing things that they want to be permanent in the life of human beings, but they're keeping how they are doing this. They're keeping it a secret from you. How are they establishing something that they want to go into many, many, many future generations without you knowing it? They want it to be a secret how they're creating a one world order or a new world order. They don't want you to know how they're doing it. They just want you to know that they're doing it and that what they're doing is just normal. It's the normal course of things that happened in human history. In ancient Greece, the society became dominated by the gay life, the homosexual life. You know, it's in our statues. We go to the museum and we look at Zeus and all of these other myths and creations, and they're laying there with no clothes on, and the females are laying there with no bra on, no straps, just the body and the booty hands, in the back. And my children have to go to the library and they have to go to the museums and look at these statues of naked people. But you try to look at it at home with your children, they lock you up. They say that's pornography. But at the same time, they are impressing these influences into the genetic structure of our children by repeating these things to us over and over again. Now they want to put it in our grade schoolers' school books. Johnny has two daddies. They have 7-year-olds looking at books now, sanctioned by the Board of Education in this country, that show two minors, two boys in the bed with each other, examining each other's genitalia. That's what I mean by secret, permanent. They are making these proclivities permanent by impressing them into the genetic structure through repetition, changing the coded messages of the fitra into their messages. Instead of DNA, RNA, they give you mRNA that's created in their laboratories. And they give it to you in a jab. You get it? They give it to you in a jab. They know that the right cross is coming right after that. It's going to knock our asses out. But they got to start with the jab. Right now, they're telling us on the news, if you're paying attention, that there's a brand new disease waiting to get you. And they have no vaccination for it yet. And they say it's 20 times worse than COVID. I'll be sending you the videos maybe later today. 10 to 20 times worse than COVID. They want you to start panicking again. They want all of your energies to be down in your lower chakras so that you can't think, you can't concentrate, you can't contemplate, you can't make proper decisions. That's how they destroy your salat, not by stopping you from doing a ritual. Now, if you know what those rituals mean, you're on the good ship Lollipop. Keep sailing. But if you have no clue and you just think these are physical rituals, physical motions, you're tired, you're thinking about paying the rent and why you're late for the rent and you're low, and that's it. You are wasting your time while the world of manipulators are over your head like a puppeteer, driving you into particular directions that they want you to go in because those directions benefit them and their families directly. And they are making permanent something that they used to do just kind of sporadically. They know they manipulate a society and they know this is going to last 10 years. Then they got to come up with another scheme that'll last another 10 years. That's why they call every 10 years a decade. It means decade. It means that after 10 years, that influence is going to die out. Whether you're talking fashion, food, whatever it is. They're going to introduce this particular thing called junk food. They're going to introduce McDonald's and Burger King and all of the other junk food. And we can get a good 10-year run. When they found out that they could influence people beyond the decade into the century, oh man, they lost their cotton picking wicked minds. This is the most important part of this address today. They lost their cotton picking minds. They said, we can stress this out. Maybe we can rule for 1,000 years. And the night of power is worth more than 1,000 years. So says the Quran. So all you got to do is figure out where that power is, and you'll be protected for at least 1,000 years. Nature boy, nature girl, Muslim. Their scheme has no power against the power that Allah gives you doing what is called Laylatul Qadr. We'll talk on that more maybe next week. The so-called night of power. The fitra is the only influence in terms of energies in this world that can give you a permanent sacred disposition. It has to be the sperm that emanates from the energies deposited within you by the fitra. Those are permanent energies. They travel generation to generation to generation to generation. What is in your genes is the product of influences that have been around for thousands and thousands of years, traveling down that road until it came to you and your generation. And now here you are, but you're the byproduct of influences, biological influences, even spiritual proclivities, even emotional attitudes that are passed down generation to generation to generation to generation. And they don't want you to be in control of that. So they work on the secret permanent, making their influences permanent in your genetics, meaning in your intelligence, and also in your sociological perspective, called memes. So look at these pictures. The one on the left is an X-ray of the human spine. The one on the right, obviously, is a writing pen. Now, add this to your collection of information. The word spine, S-P-I-N-E, is consonantally connected to the word penis. We'll say pinus just for algorithm's sake, and they don't try and tag me for anything. So pinus, spine and pinus have exactly the same letters. Look at it carefully. You think that's an accident? Or do you think that the linguistic wizards of this world developed a language that would speak their secret messages to each other? The cerebrospinal fluid, as well as the fluid emanating from the pinus, can both be wasted if not properly and consciously managed. So you can waste this ink. You can leave the tip out too long and the ink dries up. You hate that, right? When you got something important to write down and you go to the pen and you put it on the paper and nothing comes out. Well, the cerebrospinal fluid's ink is called cerebrospinal fluid, but it can be wasted also. It's wasted when you lose the science of how to meditate. It's wasted when you lose the science of how to concentrate. What is all of this ADD, ADD, S and P and Y, Z and all of this stuff doing in the world? This wasn't in the world when I was a boy. People weren't this overweight when I was a boy. I think they say 7 out of 10 people now are overweight. Children, I'm talking about 7 out of 10 of our children are overweight. And not by a little bit. Remember when we were boys, the people my age, 60s, 70s, there was one overweight child in our club, in our group. Just like go look at the Little Rascals. And they called him Chubby. It was one guy. Everybody else was slim and trim. Chubby. You remember Fat Albert? It was just Fat Albert that was fat. What happened in the last 20 years, 25, 30 years to flip the script on weight management? There was no childhood diabetes when I was a boy. I ended up getting it, diabetes, but as an adult. But there was no child. Now, there are babies that are being designated as diabetic from the womb. Your baby is born with diabetes. That's unheard of. What are they doing? How are they doing that? By making sure that it translates into the sperm, the sacred permanent behavior. So understand that. That means that what comes out of the penis as sperm can influence generations to come. Your proclivity for certain diseases, your proclivity for being overweight. It doesn't mean that you're going to definitely be overweight because your daddy and mommy were overweight, but it means that because you're going to now grow up in an environment of parents that are severely overweight, the chances of you becoming overweight and diabetic and bad health and bad heart and all, and having to wear glasses at 3 years old and all of that, the chances are very high because you're inheriting them through the sperm, the proclivity, not the actual factual, but in other words, you come out of your mother with a proclivity for diabetes, but it's going to be determined by whether they put you in an environment that enforces and reinforces diabetes. All of the foods you eat have sugar as the first ingredient. Sugar Frosted Flakes, Sugar Pops, all of these cereals were named sugar when I was a child. That's how it happens. It's not God doing that to you. It's the social conspirators doing this to you. Boy, please understand that. And likewise, within the scholarship that is sold to the human communities around this planet, within that scholarship is the pen. Within that scholarship is the fluid that is to influence your moral and ethical behavior into the future, into future generations that you produce from your loins. That's how generations become corrupt. One after another, one after another, one after another. So the word penis is also connected to the word pen, obviously. And pen can also mean 5. Look at the words pentagram and pentagon. Pentagon and pentagram. Pen means 5. This 5 is representative of our 5 sense makeup that delivers its messages through the intellect, which allows human beings to make sense of their environment. See, your senses, your 5 senses allow human beings to make sense of their environment. Once you make sense of your environment and you are now able to read the environment, when you begin reading the environment, you are actually putting together sentences. How beautiful is that? So you go from the 5 senses, which allow the intellect to begin making sense of the environment. And when you read that sense that you're finding in the environment based on the fitrah, and you begin to ponder the fitrah, your mind is going to naturally formulate proper sentences, not literal sentences with words and commas and all and exclamation points. We're talking abstractly now, meaning putting things together that make sense. That's all a sentence is. When you put a group of words or concepts together that at the end of it, when you put a period or whatever on it, it makes sense to the intellect. Does racism make sense to the intellect? No, because it's not a part of the fitrah. Does homosexual life and lifestyles and raising children in those lifestyles without a choice for having a male father and a female mother, the child had no choice. You adopted the child into that relationship. Does that make sense to the intellect? No, it doesn't. I don't care what comes out of their mouths. You know it doesn't make sense when they got to jump through hoops to make it right. I want to marry you, mister. Okay, me and mister, we go get married. Now we want to have children. Can we have children? Me and mister? No. So but that doesn't make sense in the fitrah. You can't make a sentence out of that statement. I want to marry a man as a man and have a baby. No. Now you got to jump through some hoops. I got to go adopt. Okay, when you adopt, will that child carry your bloodstream, your bloodline, your blood proclivities, your illnesses, or your strengths in terms of your health? No. In fact, there's so many possibilities here that you can't calculate. You got to wait until the child grows into it. But how come that child couldn't have the chance to have? We weren't living in a society where all of the males, all of the females disappeared. So why does it make sense to me to deprive an adopted child of an actual mother and father? Explain that to me. Explain how that makes sense to me or to you. I'm not saying that homosexual couples can't have family life. They can do whatever they want. But just be aware that your consequences, especially upon the next generation that you choose to raise, can be severe and can be devastating, especially when people found out or find out that you could have done it differently and they did not have to grow up in this confusion, because there's going to be confusion, but they didn't have to participate. I think it was Madonna that adopted a particular child from a country in Africa. And it was one of those YouTube segments about like whatever happened to, whatever happened to the children that Madonna adopted out of Africa. How are they living now? And they showed the young man that she adopted as a 4-year-old child, 5-year-old child out of this village. Village was doing poorly. The parents said, "Oh, if my child can live a better life living with Madonna, he must not have YouTube. If my child can live a better life with Madonna," and of course, he lived the life of a wealthy child, but he grew up to be a flaming homosexual. His flame was turned up high. The clothing he wore was all like waving a flag. Look at me, look at me. The way he spoke was with a slurred, artificial voice of, many of the male homosexuals. They have these fake slurring. Well, you don't have to do. Why are you trying to talk like a woman if you are a woman? Or because if you don't like women, why are you dressing like one if you don't say you don't like them? You say you're two women who want to be together. Why is one of you dressing like a man if you don't like men? Now, I'm not trying to, get booted off of YouTube. I don't think anything I'm saying is prejudicial. It's just stuff for us to think about. The whole world is not built around the AGLSB or whatever the alphabet. The whole world is not that. You have to get it out of your mind and stop fearing the criticism of those who criticize, as the Quran says. Do not fear the criticism of those who criticize. We're about to develop our own audience anyway in another couple of weeks, quiet as it's kept. We have our own Lunetics network that's about to be premiered in October, November, absolutely by December, inshallah. By December, you'll be tuning into our own website. We'll still have a YouTube appearance, but it won't be as much information as you're getting now. And you won't have to worry about pronouncing things differently so it doesn't pick up on the algorithm of people who are being prejudiced against this group, prejudiced against that group. You can teach what you can come on as an educator and start teaching. Just make sure that your stuff is backed up and verified and qualified, that's all. So let's wind down and conclude. The word al-insan, which is all throughout the Quran and means the human being, that word, al-insan, speaks directly to the human being as a socially conscious creature. Pay attention. Al-insan is speaking not just to human beings. It's speaking to human beings that have grown into or up to the level of being socially conscious. Socially conscious indicates that they are on the level of the intellect, because it's the intellect that decides what is proper for the social environment. Based on comparative analysis of what's going on in the environment, what's needed in this environment, what doesn't take away from the integrity of this environment. That's what the intellect has been designed by Allah to do, to internally internally choose based on what the best case scenario choices are. Oh, that's better? Okay, this first choice is going to benefit me and my family. But if I choose this other thing, it's not going to benefit me and my family only. It's going to benefit me and my family to a degree, but it's going to also share what's necessary for the broader group of people in the community or even in the humanity in the world to be able to benefit from this, if I'm not selfish and stingy with it. That's what Al Insan is supposed to do, but Al Insan loses its way along the way. And Allah has to come correct Al Insan because it's operating off of a faulty logic, off of a faulty intellect, off of a faulty sense of choosing what is the best over what is the worst. And the Quran or some comparative scripture, spiritual guidance or something, has to come and push them back towards the center. So that's al-insan, the socially conscious creature. But Allah also gives us the level of development that produces what is called in the Quran an-nas. And an-nas comes before al-insan. And nas is when the groups of people on this earth came together as people who were intuitively aware. See, this is before the introduction of formal education on this planet. People were learning through the prompts being presented through their immediate environment. And it was making them intuitively aware as a human creature. So, an-nas means intuitively aware. Al-insan means socially conscious. See, this is conscious, al-insan, but this is just aware, intuitively. It's not conscious. You are not intuitively conscious. If you were intuitively conscious, you'd be able to intuit at will. You'd be able to predict circumstance after situation because you can intuit it. That's not the first stage of human development. The first stage is just like the child and the infant and the grade schooler. They will know things or actually be aware of things without knowing how or why they became aware. They'll just say, like my wife did to her father when she was a young girl. He was a truck driver. He was going out that morning to go to work. And for some reason, she ran up to him and started crying and pulling on his clothes and saying, "Daddy, don't go to work today. Please don't go to work today." My wife was highly intuitive as a child. She still is. Not as much, but when she was a child, her own family was afraid of her because they knew that when she said things, they came true. Back in those days, they would see you as some kind of witch or something. They didn't know what was going on. But she asked her father, whom she loved dearly, and he loved her dearly. She said, "Don't go." He pushed it off. "Oh, that's just you as a child talking." He went out that day and he was in a very serious accident that caused him to lose one of his legs. He became an amputee after that. That was her intuition. You see, Nas, think about the nose. The nose is the center for intuition in the human body. You say, "I smell something." You don't mean it literally. It's a figurative statement. It's an abstract concept. Something smells fishy around. It ain't no fish. The nose knows. That's your intuition. A whole group of religious people called the Gnostics, the Gnostics, were developed based on this concept I'm explaining to you right now of the nose. Gnostic. The people who believed knowledge from on high, from God, could be intuited into certain people on earth, and then they become the rulers over the people. Not because they are popes and not because of the Vatican, but because God taught them directly, intuitively. The mountain that Musa went up to was called Mount Tur, but that journey began down in a valley called Tuwa. You get it? Tuwa is what gave us the word intuition. Gave us the word tuition, which means that you have to pay for it. It ain't free of charge anymore. What's the payment for gaining intuition? The payment is the repeated performance and practice of as-salat. I know some of you are getting this now. Your payment is not money in order to gain intuition. Your payment is the repeated practice of as-salat. So he went from the valley of Tuwa up to the mountain of Tur. And Tur is where you take the tour. It's when you see a little of everything from up there. It's real. So you pay tuition through meditation. That's your first payment. You continue to pay tuition through your concentration. And you pay for the entire course. Actually, from the meditation to the concentration. What's the last one? Somebody remind me. Brain is getting a little tired.
Did you say contemplate?
Contemplate.
No, that's the last one, through the contemplation. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. So that's when tuition is paid off, when you can get through all three of those every day, several times a day, at certain particular moments in the day. That's what the Quran is talking about. There are certain times in the day that are most conducive to the framing of the word. I'm giving you their translation. That early morning, before you get up for your day's duties, they call it Fajr, al-Fajr. Allah says to read at that point in the morning because it is the time that is most conducive to the framing of the word. We'll get into that when we start these private classes next week. But that's the tuition that you have to pay. Same tuition that Musa paid. Same tuition that Muhammad paid when he went into the cave of Hira. Hira. If you can't hear, you can't get in. If you can't hear the guidance, Allah's knocking on the door of your conscience, and you don't answer, you can't get in. You have to begin at the cave, and the cave is just the brain. It's the mind. You have to begin at the cave of Hira. That's where your angel will appear. Jibra'il. Jibra'il, from the word Jibr, Jabara, Jibr, it means bone setter. Oh boy, I'm leaving you with some juicy ideas now. The name Jibra'il means bone setter. If you don't know anything else, based on what I've taught you, you should know that bone setter must be somehow related to those 33 bones operating as your spine. If those bones become disunited, the whole body is at a loss. Because you either won't be able to walk at all if your spine becomes injured, if it becomes an overly disastrous thing that happens, like happened to Karima's dad. He didn't injure his spine, but he lost a leg. But if you lose the momentum and the activity of the spine, you can die. Forget just not being able to walk. You can die based on the injury sustained to the spine. So that's what Jibra'il is protecting. He is the energies that are operating in your chakra system, which runs up and down your spinal cord. Much more to say, but I'm going to conclude there. And I thank each and every one of you for listening. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I infringed on the class time of Imam Rahim in Atlanta. I hope they knew just to go on and do what they do as a class, unless they felt as though it was better to just stay signed on to this and work their class out at some other day or some other time. Inshallah, I will rejoin them tomorrow, next Sunday. Oh, okay, good. All right.
We are here. We are listening.
All right.
Alhamdulillah, enjoying
Okay. Great.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, but I do want to get back with you guys maybe next Sunday because I had some other personal notes that I needed to share with just your class.
Not next Sunday, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, you let me know.
Okay, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank all of you. Is the imam sitting there?
Yes, he's here.
Yes, sir, brother.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, brother instructor.
All right. So I hope all of you got a little something out of today's presentation.
Absolutely. Anxious to get the replay because, we were in our 2 o'clock and then we chimed in after that and
Yeah.
got the last part, and it's beautiful.
I'm gonna
Alhamdulillah.
work on it as soon as we hang up. And the entire audience should have it in about, say another 2 hours max.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it back myself. I forgot what I said.
Alhamdulillah.
That's how inspiration is. Thank you, Victor.
So you wanted to remind everyone about registering for the class formally.
Yes. If you are in the University Online Learning course class, if you're already in officially, it means that you made your payment or you made some agreement with me to remain in the class. You know what that is as an individual. If you've communicated with me and I said, no problem, we can do separate payments, or I can excuse you for the rest of the semester, whatever the agreement was, you know me. Don't worry about what I'm saying right now. I'm only speaking now to the people I spoke to in the last email, and that is that if you've been on my email list, some of you for a few years now, and I haven't heard from you at all in terms of contributing to the class financially or academically or any other way, then this will remain your final connection as far as emailing goes. I won't send out any more emails to anybody who has not shown proper recognition for what it is we're doing here. So my list is about to dramatically dwindle. Again, if you've been in communication and I know who you are and all of that, I'm not talking about you, so don't be quick. Don't start sweating and I better get in touch with you. I talked to you 2 weeks ago. You're all right. You're good. Just relax. Again, I'm talking to people who have email addresses. I don't even know who the names behind these email addresses, but just out of courtesy and kindness and compassion, I continue to send them links, but they won't continue to receive those links. The process for which we deliver information is going to dramatically change because I want to get more with the individuals who have committed to the course. So breaking down into smaller groups of 6 or 7 maximum in each group. We still have to work out the logistics because it means that I have to meet with you probably on different days. Because say if we got about a good, let's call it 50 regular people right now, 40 regular people. If I break that down into groups of 6 or 7, I'm not a great mathematician. You tell me what that would be, how many classes we'd end up with.
6 or 7.
Yeah. 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 Okay. I gave you the answer without knowing. Yeah. So that's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. So I can listen more than I teach, meaning I can give you some instructions for that day, let you work it out as a class, develop your answers, and then be prepared to feed me back those answers in the next class or during that class. I want to hear from you. I want to know what your voices sound like. I want to know what your beautiful faces look like. You won't be able to be in the class unless you show your face. The rate of growth that you're going to experience when this starts next week is going to be exponential. You'll be surprised at yourself with the answers you start giving when I start giving you one-on-one attention and allowing you to ask questions during the class and get answers directly from me and from other leaders in your group, because you're going to have at least 1 or 2 Nunetics leaders in each one of those groups. There's no such thing as a group where nobody knows anything about Nunetics, because most of you now know Nunetics. So it's as simple as joining the class. The class is not mandatory, but it is included in what you pay every semester. So you can take advantage of it or not. You'll just be losing out on a major feature of your payment. And that is to be able to join me for no extra money. There's no extra pay. I know for, these classes cost $20 extra. No, it's included in what you've already paid as a payment or donation, call it, to the class. I can't call it tuition because I don't have that kind of paperwork. Don't need to call it tuition. I just told you what intuition was. So you're paying tuition every time you join us. All right. So just be advised of that. and have your notebooks. Make sure that you have a separate notebook ready for those classes, and some new pens. I just gave you some new pens in the lesson, right? Have some new pens ready to write down what will hopefully become permanent etchings in your mind, the information I'm talking about, permanently etched in your mind to the point where all I got to do is ask you, tell me what this means. It means blah, 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 just like y'all were doing today. Tell me what that means. Blah, 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 blah. That's what I want to hear. You're doing it already, but I want you to practice doing that as 6 and 7 people in a group that you can stay in touch with during the week. You can call, you're going to exchange numbers, exchange email addresses, see, so that, brothers like Hoots and the other people who chime in probably in the chat room somewhere, they're going to be in the classes. We'll get a chance to hear what they sound like because we want them to talk, we got the great leaders and instructors, Waliuddin, you saw him, William Safir, and, quite a few of them. Abdul Salam. Man, we got so many teachers who are ready. New people like Nawa. Oh, my goodness. Oh, man. So these people are going to get a chance to really stretch out. All right. You guys reach out to Ezekiel. I haven't seen him in a while. I'm concerned. Can't have people that good just fall off the track. So I know he's busy. I know he's very busy. But I'm not going to be so busy that I can't reach out to him. So I'll reach out to him also. But those of you in that area in Atlanta, just, check in with him. Okay. All right. So I think that's all I have to say. The last email went out and I told you that anybody who has $1 above lunch, feel free to send it as a donation. Nunetics Institute is not supported by any governmental agency. It's not supported by any secret society people. Ain't nobody slipping nobody no money under the table for me to teach them Nunetics. All right. This is all based on what I bring to you every week, based on my very, very diligent study of the language and languages. And I'm sharing that with people who I know are not on that level. But I'm telling you to hang in here, stay in it, because it's going to be I believe that before the end of this year, going into January, February, most of you are going to be so advanced in this understanding. And I'm talking also to people in the YouTube audience. You won't hear this after this, all right? But if you want to learn on the level that I'm suggesting that I know you're capable of, you need to tap into this thing officially. You can do so by emailing me at where am I now? Okay, emailing me at what's my email address again?
Cosmic Quran.
I got so many of them. It's crazy. Yes.
Cosmic Quran.
Yes, it'll be at the end of the video. CosmicQuran1@gmail.com. But like I said, I have several of them. The other one that you're used to is Nunetics2@gmail.com. There's also Nunetics .institute@gmail. That's the official one. Nunetics.institute@gmail.com. But the main one is the Cosmic Quran1@gmail.com. All of that information will be at the end of the video. And share, like this video and share. Do it now. If you're watching on YouTube right now, like the video. That helps the algorithms. That helps bring more people who are interested in this kind of information to my channel, to our channel. So like it, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Once you subscribe, every time I put up a video, it's going to let you know. You'll get it in your phone, you'll get it on your computer, and you won't have to search for it or tell me, hey, I didn't see that, or you didn't send that. Yes, I did. Are you subscribed? Oh, no, I'm not subscribed. Well, subscribe. It's just the touch of a button on your computer. Subscribe. Okay. All right. So I'm officially done. And we have a lot of new people with us. I keep seeing the names pop up, and that's a good sign for us. And as we go into the official operation of our website, nuneticsinstitute.org, O-R-G. Right now, if you go there to nuneticsinstitute.org, you're going to see 24/7 repeated replays, 50 or so videos that we've done in the past. If you wake up at 3 in the morning and you can't go back to sleep and your brain is kind of, just go to the website. 24/7. That's progress, right, William?
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah, that's progress.
Yeah.
Right, Bayina? I see you looking. Yeah, that's progress. All right. So do that. And it's going to get much more fancy and much more inclusive of your work and your lectures and your writings. When you write a page or so or something, we're going to record it and put it on there so that it will loop also 24/7. So begin writing, begin getting your ideas out of your head and onto paper. And again, in 4, 5, 6 months max, you're going to see a very powerful website in front of your eyes that you can share with others and be proud about it. My presentations are going to be reduced to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, what they call YouTube shorts, just to introduce people to Noonetics and send them over to the website. It's not going to be 2 and 3 and 4 hours like it is now. You better go get those two. You can get those 2 or 3, 4 hours now. You can just go to the website and get them. And then, when you cut it off, it cuts off. When you come back, it's still running. So why do you need YouTube after that? Our job now is to build up our clientele, our audience from the YouTube people and the BitChute people and all of these other sites. We want our own inclusive audience so that we do not have to depend on YouTube that will censor what we say, limit what we say. Karima did a video once and they banned it. What kind of foolishness is that? She's trying to tell you how to keep your health together and they ban it because she said something that the pharmaceutical industries disagreed with. And they're all in bed with each other, so to speak. They're all in cahoots with each other. So if you say something about the jab and they don't like it, they just take you off. No, they don't even tell you why. They don't say because at the 3-minute mark you said, they don't even give you that anymore. They used to. Now it's if we don't like you, you can't play on our channel. When our channel, what they're calling our channel is supported by us. So if we just stop watching it, they fade to black. But I don't want to advocate for that because I love freedom of speech. Y'all understand? I love the Constitution and what it says about freedom of speech. Whether you like what I say or not, I should be free to say it. As long as I'm not insulting and I'm not instigating any violence against anybody. But like I said earlier, they're trying to institute a brand new disease. You know what they call it? You people who used to be in the Nation of Islam, you'll appreciate this. They call it Disease X. You ever see a cartoon where the eyes are drawn as X's? So they call it, if you ever see a cartoon and they have X's for eyeballs, it means they're either knocked out. That's what a lot of jabs can do if it's powerful enough, can knock you out. Or it means that they died, they're dead. And they put the X over their grave, right? In the form of a cross. So if you're not able to read their language, you're not going to be able to read their scheme. Instructor Benjamin Bilal, along with some other very qualified readers among us, are able to read this symbolism. Yeah, disease X. And again, it comes from a bat. And, it comes from, whatever other animal they're trying to fool you into believing is causing these diseases. Comes out of nowhere, has all of the same symptoms as COVID, which they've already proven to be a lie. But they're trying to fool the people. But I'm telling you, the masses will not be fooled again. They're over there in China. They say it's in China. And they're masking up already, mandated masking. They will not pull it off again this time. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And all of us. They're desperate. Your Bill Gates, your George Soroses. They are desperados right now because they see their world sinking. They see their schemes dying in terms of their influence. And the people, my goodness, they are waking up by the droves. And I don't mean politically, I mean humanly. So pay attention, because whatever you give your attention to does what?
Expands.
Expands.
And with that correct answer, I give you the greetings that obligate each and every one of us to keep the peace, and that is salam alaikum to you all. Thank you.
Walaikum salam.
Assalam, Shukran. Thank you so much.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
All right. Glad to hear all of you.